You practice immortality. I cultivate the land. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226 Amber Spirit Seed. As they walked, Xuan slowly deviated from the direction of his three fellow disciples. He stopped only after they had walked far away. He carefully scanned the surroundings with his spiritual sense, but did not find any trace of any cultivators. However, the density of the strange vines was a little higher than before, and he could easily find them by looking around. This strange ghost vine is composed of many dark blue vines of varying thicknesses. The vines are twisted and swaying, and at first glance, they look like mountain ghosts in the forest, looking like they are choosing people to devour. There are also pale green flowers on the top of the vines. From a distance, they look like flickering ghost fires, which adds a bit of evil and horror to the plants. Xuan kept a distance from the surrounding strange ghost vines to prevent them from suddenly attacking. Then, the spiritual energy in his body circulated, and a large-scale spiritual rain spell covering a radius of 100 meters was performed. Threads of spiritual rain dripped down and penetrated into all the strange ghost vines in the range. Wherever you cultivate and feed them, you will be able to obtain detailed information and timely status of spiritual beasts and plants. Even if those strange ghost vines were transformed into monster-like beings, as long as they absorbed the spiritual rain brought by Xuan, they could learn everything about them in detail. Xuan's mind was focused on the nearest strange ghost vine, and then a thought flashed through his mind. Strange ghost vine, a third-grade spiritual plant, a demon-transformed plant, has extremely strong aggressiveness, will disguise itself as a normal spiritual plant, and actively attack monsters or monks approaching them. It feeds on the flesh and blood of other spiritual plants and monsters other than its own kind. It cannot be condensed. A demon-transformed spiritual plant will actively attack monks or monsters. The information about the strange ghost vine made Xuan feel a little novel. This was the first time he had encountered a spiritual plant that actively attacked a monk. Previously, in Linyang Market, many spiritual plants were affected by evil spirits and mutated, but they did not show any intention to actively attack. After entering the Xianjian sect, the spiritual plants cultivated became more and more abundant, and the grades became higher and higher. Among them, there were also spiritual plants such as the bewildering fairy peach, the hundred-eyed strange wood, and the holy infant fruit that could affect the desires and minds of monks. But they either said that it was their nature or they were controlled by the monks hiding in the dark. They would not take the initiative to attack like this demon-mutated ghost vine. Xuan continued to check other spiritual plants. In the huge range of the spiritual rain technique, there were nearly 20 ghost vines, most of which were demon-mutated plants. It was not until the 6th plant that Xuan found a normal ghost vine. The ghost vine can be used to refine some special high-grade elixirs after maturity, and can also assist in practicing evil-type exercises. It can grow normally by absorbing spiritual energy. Among the more than 20 ghost vines, a total of 4 were normal spiritual plants, and the rest were demon-mutated plants. There is still a big difference between the demon-transformed plants and normal plants. The two grow in slightly different ways. The demon-transformed plants are no longer satisfied with simply absorbing spiritual power. They have a strong desire for other spiritual plants and monster flesh and blood outside of their own kind. However, some unknown changes may occur during the demon transformation process, causing the demon-transformed ghost vine to be unable to condense seeds and continue its life. Xuan sighed and memorized the 4 normal spiritual plants. What is professionalism? No need to carefully exclude, no need to risk fighting. A spiritual rain technique can quickly identify normal ghost vines. That's called professionalism. The way the 3 people picked the ghost vines before was to step on the mines violently, stepping on them one by one, and working together to solve them when they stepped on them. Xuan's method is to sweep the mines, using means to mark which ones are mines and which ones are not, and then directly bypass the demon-transformed plants and pick the normal ghost vine spiritual plants. He slowly walked to a demon-transformed ghost vine, stepped on the small steps, and slowly reached out to grab the pale green flowers on the vine. A third grade spiritual plant. I'll get it soon. Just as his finger was about to touch the flower, Lu Xuan turned around and walked straight to another plant. Behind him, the alien ghost vine, which had been trembling slightly with the approach of Lu Xuan, calmed down. Under the ground, hundreds of tentacle-like roots slowly retracted back into the depths of the ground. Lu Xuan did the same thing. Whenever he was about to get close to a demon-transformed spiritual plant, he was excited, as if he had discovered some great opportunity. But just when he was about to touch it, he quickly retracted his hand, provoking the demon-transformed ghost vine to move, but there was nowhere to vent. He walked to a normal alien ghost vine, and then carefully picked it. However, because he did not cultivate and take care of the spiritual plants, no white light ball appeared after picking it. In this way, he shuttled among many spiritual plants, pretending to get close to the demon-transformed plants, and then quickly retreated. When he encountered a real normal alien ghost vine, he picked it without hesitation. Lu Xuan's actions seemed to anger those demon-transformed spiritual plants. When picking the last normal alien ghost vine within the coverage of the spirit rain, suddenly, hundreds of black and blue vines with barbs emerged from the ground and attacked Lu Xuan like lightning. Come on. Lu Xuan was prepared, and his right hand patted the green and mottled good on his waist. Suddenly, a sword sound rang out, and countless subtle sword ki shot out from the mouth of the good like swimming fish, heading for those black and blue vines. The sword ki was extremely sharp, and subtle sword marks appeared on the vines. The number increased, and the marks became deeper and deeper. After a moment, the black and blue tentacles broke directly, and fell all over the ground. After Lu Xuan sacrificed the sword ki and the sword raising good, the purple lightning sword brought a trace of lightning, and the autumn wind sword technique in the four-seasoned sword art was used, like the wind blowing, with endless killing intent in the bleak and cold. Pieces of black and blue vines fell to the ground, like cut earthworms, jumping in the grey and black soil, struggling to death. After losing the camouflage ability and surprise attack that they relied on for survival, the attacks of the ghost vines were reduced by several levels, and Lu Xuan easily eliminated the several ghost vines that surrounded him. Huh? Why did they retreat suddenly? He noticed that the demon plants he had identified, and the ones in the distance quickly drilled into the spiritual soil, and the vines on the ground and the normal ghost vines disappeared in an instant. Lu Xuan smelled something wrong. Did they find out that I restrained them? Or was it a premeditated behavior? He was puzzled, and the light blue light ball in his danshan turned slightly. A trace of greenwood source energy drilled out of his body, and under the control of Lu Xuan's spiritual consciousness, it quickly woven into a light blue giant net with extremely small meshes, which could ensure that no tiny spiritual seeds were missed. He planned to use this giant net to plow the empty medicine garden and find the spiritual seeds that might be hidden inside. The greenwood source energy has a natural affinity for spiritual plants and can keenly sense the vitality in the spiritual seeds, which is much easier than Lu Xuan's search with spiritual consciousness. The pale blue giant net continued to penetrate the ground until it reached the limit of Lu Xuan's spiritual awareness, and then it was retracted. Lu Xuan was not discouraged and found a new piece of land to continue screening and searching for seeds. Got it. After continuous attempts, Lu Xuan sensed a very weak fluctuation of vitality from the pale blue giant net. He operated the earth attracting technique of the Great Success Realm, and the soil structure continued to change, turning over the things inside. A spiritual seed like amber. Chapter 227, Soul Enriching Pine. The spirit seed was slender and light yellow in color, and was covered with a thick layer of pine resin, which well isolated the spirit seed from the outside world. Although the vitality is weak, it cannot be faked. A black sword light shot out from the danshan, as thin as a cicada's wing. Under the control of Lu Xuan's spiritual consciousness, the pine resin on the surface of the spirit seed was scraped off bit by bit. He then performed the earth drawing technique, and a slender crack appeared on the ground, which took the slender spirit seed into it. His mind was focused on the spirit seed in the shallow layer of the spiritual soil, and suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. The spirit pine, a 4th grade spiritual plant, needs the spiritual plant master to input his own spiritual consciousness to communicate and warm the plant when it grows. The mature pine cone can enhance the spiritual consciousness of the cultivator. Since the spirit seed cannot be bred for a long time, it automatically secretes pine resin spirits to isolate it from the outside world and try to slow down the loss of vitality in the spirit seed. 4th grade spiritual seed. It can enhance the spiritual consciousness of the cultivator. I have picked up a treasure, Xuan exclaimed. Among the spiritual plants he has planted, only a few are of the 4th grade, such as the black insect vine, the earth fireheart lotus, and 100 pupil strangewood in the courtyard of Jianmen Town. As for the 5th grade holy infant fruit, it was a trap set by the cultivator behind the scenes, and it is actually just the main body. What's more, after the 4th grade of the soul enriching pine matures, it can also enhance the spiritual consciousness of the cultivator. The spiritual consciousness is improved very slowly, except for the natural enlightenment when breaking through the realm. Other conventional methods of improvement are extremely rare, either some rare natural treasures, or through practicing some kind of sect protecting method. And the soul enriching pine spirit seed in front of him, even if the spiritual consciousness is not improved much after maturity, is also an extremely rare high grade spiritual plant. Xuan carefully dug out the soul enriching pine spirit seed, and the pale green giant net continued to go deeper into the spiritual soil. After obtaining the dormant 4th grade soul enriching pine spirit seed, he was full of energy and tirelessly explored around the medicine garden. I kept digging in the small medicine garden. Hey, I found another one. A moment later, Xuan dug out another amber-like soul seed wrapped in pine resin. In the end, a total of 4 soul seeds were dug out from the medicine garden. Unknowingly, Xuan had been going deeper and deeper into the center of the medicine garden. A lot of King Mu Yuan Qi has been consumed. It seems that I need to go to that ancient forest to meet old acquaintances before leaving the blessed land. Perhaps because the soul seeds of soul pine only exist in one area, Xuan searched for a long time, but did not find any new soul seeds. Those demon transformed ghost vines should have all retreated to the center of the medicine garden. He looked up at the depths of the medicine garden. On the way here, except for the first batch he encountered, he did not encounter any demon transformed ghost vines. Even the ordinary plants disappeared, as if they were all taken away by their demon transformed companions. There must be something wrong when things are abnormal. Should I go into the center of the medicine garden to take a look? Xuan fell into deep thought. With his always cautious temperament, he would definitely stay away from them at ordinary times, but this time was a little different. After all, this medicine garden was left by ancient monks. It is the place in the blessed land where spiritual seeds and seedlings of spiritual plants are most likely to be obtained. Just now, 4 4th grade spiritual seeds of the spiritual pine were found at the edge of the medicine garden. The central area is likely to have greater opportunities. In addition, the biggest reliance of those demon mutated ghost vines is to disguise themselves as normal spiritual plants and suddenly attack when the monks approach to pick them. But this is completely ineffective in front of Xuan. He can tell whether the strange ghost vines are demon mutated with just an ordinary spiritual rain technique. The 3rd grade demon mutated ghost vines are weaker than ordinary 3rd grade monsters. After losing that killer weapon, they are far inferior and can be easily dealt with. Go over and take a look secretly. If you find anything abnormal, run away immediately. Xuan made up his mind. On the thin dark golden hidden spiritual cloak inside, countless nearly transparent silk threads emerged, covering Xuan's figure. After a few breaths, Xuan's figure seemed to be wiped away by something and disappeared directly. In his vision, the whole world was covered with a layer of special material, hazy and unclear. He entered the invisible state, and his movement slowed down a lot, slowly approaching the center of the medicine garden. As he went deeper, Xuan noticed that there were more and more monster bones in the medicine garden, and some of them were so old that he could turn them into powder by stepping on them lightly. It's a pity that they are all useless bones, and the spiritual power inside them is completely lost. Otherwise I can take them back to nourish the thorn bones. Xuan hid in the dark golden clothes inside secretly. What is that? After entering the center of the medicine garden, the scene in front of him surprised Xuan. Hundreds of strange ghost vines gathered together, and the blue-black vines danced wantonly, like 100 ghosts at night under the dim sky. In the center of the many strange ghost vines, there was an extremely huge and evil plant. The height of ordinary demon mutant ghost vines is comparable to that of ordinary humans, but this one is 5 feet tall, and the blue-black vines are as thick as an adult's arm, constantly entangled upwards. At the top of it, there was a pale green flower bud the size of a wooden basin, which was constantly shrinking and expanding, as if breathing. As if sensing Lu Xuan's gaze, the blue-black vines on the giant ghost vine quietly turned. Not good. Lu Xuan's spiritual consciousness sensed the movement underground, and instantly removed the hidden spirit cloak silk thread that covered his whole body, and then jumped high. Just as he left the ground, countless tentacle-like vines broke out of the ground, stabbing the ground, where Lu Xuan had just stood with holes. After the attack missed, hundreds of demonic mutant ghost vines continued to attack Lu Xuan in midair. Looking down, there were blue-black vines rising and falling, with no place to stand. Lu Xuan urged the cloud rising technique, turned in midair, and landed in an area with relatively few ghost vines. As soon as he landed, countless tentacle-like vines rushed towards Lu Xuan frantically. The purple lightning sword energy flashed, and the surface of the nearest vine jumped with arcs, crackling. But there were too many ghost vines, and soon they found an opportunity. The tentacle-like vines tightly wrapped around Lu Xuan, and the dark barbs fiercely pierced Lu Xuan's skin. Fortunately, he had taken a few drops of golden marrow jade liquid and jade scale fruit before, and practiced the two major bodybuilding methods of Liuli bone forging method and Taeksuhua Langpian. The strength of his body had long surpassed that of other cultivators in the early stage of foundation building, and all the barbs did not even penetrate the skin. Lu Xuan snorted coldly, and the Zunlui sword pill in his danshan rotated at a high speed. The black sword light in the sky was like a hurricane, whistling out from his body. The wind swept, the sword intent was filled, and the surrounding vines were cut into pieces by countless Zunlui sword lights, falling to the ground, forming a hollow area. But the remaining demon mutant ghost vines were still fearless, like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, and the blue-black vines attacked Lu Xuan from all directions. Lu Xuan held the purple lightning sword in his hand, his skin emitting the glow of glazed white jade, and he was surrounded by black sword light. Wherever he went, vine fragments fell like rain. Chapter 228, Out of This World. The Zunlui sword ball in the danshan rotated at a high speed, and countless fine sword beams shot out from the sword ball. Seeing that the Zunlui sword ball was gradually getting smaller, those blue-black vines continued to attack him frantically. Lu Xuan's spiritual power was running, and more than 20 King Mu Yuan Qi drilled out from the danshan, and entangled the more than 20 demon mutant ghost vines closest to him. A shrill scream sounded, and these alien ghost vines controlled by the King Mu Yuan Qi turned against their own side, and attacked their companions frantically. Lu Xuan's pressure was relieved a lot, and he didn't care about saving King Mu Yuan Qi. More than 10 light blue spiritual powers shot out, and entangled the demon mutant ghost vines that attacked him. The partners who had just fought together turned their attacks on him in a blink of an eye, which made the demon mutant ghost vines with simple spiritual intelligence unable to react. Lu Xuan seized the opportunity, and killed many of them in a few breaths. The effect was obvious, but the consumption rate of King Mu Yuan Qi was also very fast. In such a short time, nearly half of it was lost. Woo woo. Lu Xuan suddenly heard a faint whimpering sound in his ears, mixed with strong pain. Soon, all the blue-black vines seemed to have received some instructions and instantly retracted underground. The mountain ghost-like alien ghost vines gathered again in front of the extremely huge companion, and sent out bursts of shrill wails towards Lu Xuan. Seeing this, Lu Xuan did not pursue the victory. The black sword light slowly rotated around his body, and the breeze was not dry. It was no longer as violent as before. In a short period of time, although hundreds of alien ghost vines were killed or injured, his consumption was not small. Whether it was Zunlui sword pill or King Mu Yuan Qi in danshan, there was a lot of loss. Standing quietly for a long time, the huge alien ghost vine did not move at all, and the top flower bud contracted and expanded more violently, as if something was about to come out. A light green spiritual energy slowly approached the huge alien ghost vine. It seemed that it felt that the King Mu Yuan Qi was beneficial to itself and harmless, and it seemed that it was unable to respond to Lu Xuan's actions. The light green spiritual power drilled into the body of a huge alien ghost vine very smoothly. As Lu Xuan's mind was focused, a thought emerged from his mind, and fragments of the picture passed by like a flash. the alien ghost vine, a 4th grade demon transformed spiritual plant. In a weak state, it is using its own blood essence, spirituality, and the flesh and blood of many monsters as nutrients, to try to breed a higher grade demon transformed ghost vine. The picture flashed, and Xuan saw the long history of the alien ghost vine. At first, it grew with other spiritual plants in the medicine garden of this ancient monk. No one cultivated and cared for it for a long time. In order to ensure its reproduction, a small number of alien ghost vines, which had a certain degree of aggressiveness, entered the demon transformed state, and their spiritual intelligence increased greatly, turning into demon plants similar to monsters, which could actively attack and devour other spiritual plants and even monsters. Slowly, the number of alien ghost vines that evolved into demon transformed plants increased, and gradually they divided up other spiritual plants in the medicine garden, to ensure the continuation of their own race. The demon transformed spiritual plants could not reproduce normally, so ordinary alien ghost vines grew, matured, and condensed seeds under the protection of the demon transformed plants, and this cycle repeated. After a long time, the two reached a wonderful balance. Suddenly, a powerful monk entered the medicine garden and encountered a demon mutated ghost vine. He killed it directly, while the ordinary ghost vine was cut and picked. After the monk left, although the ghost vine tribe suffered a great blow, they were still able to live well in the medicine garden and still had the hope of continuing the tribe. But the good days did not last long. More than 10 years later, another monk entered the medicine garden. He was very powerful. Even if he was attacked by a demon mutated ghost vine disguised as a normal one, he could still kill it easily and repeat the previous cutting and picking behavior. In this way, the ghost vines that kept iterating in the medicine garden were like a crop of leeks. Every once in a while, a monk would enter the medicine garden and harvest a round of ghost vines. The whole medicine garden was like their back garden, where they could take whatever they wanted. The ghost vines in the medicine garden were like being kept in captivity by the monks, and their life and death were all in their mind. Slowly, the demon mutated ghost vine, which was born with a certain amount of intelligence, had a vague idea of leaving this world and regaining freedom. It kept attacking the monsters that entered the medicine garden, actively trying to improve its strength, and finally found the possibility of letting the demon mutated ghost vine reproduce. It absorbed enough monster blood as nutrients, and with its own blood and spirituality as the guide, it condensed a new demon mutated ghost vine seedling. In this way, with the power of the entire ghost vine clan, in the depths of the medicine garden, there was a ghost vine with a strong instinct that continued to reproduce and evolve. Because it has a very strong camouflage ability, as long as it does not actively sneak attack the monks who come in, it will not be noticed. In addition, there are fewer and fewer Xianji insect monks entering the medicine garden. Occasionally, when they come to the center, the other demon mutated ghost vines have already sent timely messages and hid deep underground. When Xuan came in, he happened to encounter the critical stage of the giant ghost vine. So this is the origin. Xuan digested the fragments of the picture in his mind and took a deep breath. Perhaps it was the special breeding method of this demon mutated ghost vine from generation to generation, coupled with the instinct engraved deep in its blood, that allowed Xuan to not only simply understand its relevant information, but also see fragments of the picture, tracing back to ancient times. To put it simply, the strange ghost vines in the medicine garden tried hard to kill other spiritual plants competing for spiritual power in order to continue. Then, the elders of the sect discovered this blessed land, and these demon mutated ghost vines were completely reduced to leeks. In order to escape this fate, they secretly multiplied and evolved. Xuan sorted out the content in the picture. If the 4th grade demon mutated ghost vine can really go further, there may be a slight possibility. Of course, the possibility is really very small. Even if it becomes a 5th grade demon plant, it cannot break through the confinement of the blessed land. For the Chinden Zenran who is in charge of the blessed land, it may not be as good as an ordinary 5th grade demon beast. Xuan muttered to himself. He admired what these demon mutated ghost vines did, but he did not have any optimistic ideas. If you can easily cross it just by hard work, what class is it? When the giant alien ghost vine heard Xuan's words, its thick vine body trembled continuously, like a drowning person who had been struggling for a long time, lost hope of life, and relaxed helplessly, falling continuously. The flower bud at the top showed signs of faintly breaking. Lu Xuan sighed softly, and a light green spiritual power surged from his fingertips. The spiritual power was vigorous and seemed to be able to nurture all living things, including hope. His fingertips gently touched the thick vine of the alien ghost vine, and a green light flashed, pouring into the pale green flower bud at the top, and a subtle voice of great pleasure came from it. Believe me, give me the alien ghost vine seedling nurtured in the flower bud, and I will lead it out of this world. Lu Xuan raised the corners of his mouth and said softly. Chapter 229 Demon Wisteria. Hearing Lu Xuan's words, the giant alien ghost vine with signs of collapse stopped instantly and slowly turned. Lu Xuan felt its hesitation and continued. You must know that my origin is the same as the cultivators who entered the medicine garden before. I'm from the sect behind this blessed land. But what makes me different from them is that I'm kind, and I don't just treat spiritual plants as tools for cultivation. I treat them equally, cultivate them carefully, and do my best to make them thrive. That's why I can obtain this extremely rare and precious greenwood source energy. His tone was sincere, and the light green spiritual power between his fingers continued to linger. If you still don't trust me enough, I can swear that I will treat the alien ghost vine seedlings you have nurtured well. Hearing Lu Xuan's words, the huge alien ghost vine that had been hesitating finally made up its mind. What Lu Xuan said was true. Even if the new alien ghost vines that were bred were upgraded in grade, they were still imprisoned in this world, and were only the appendages of the sect behind the blessed land. If it is accidentally discovered by the giant and Zenran in charge of the blessed land, it may die. The greenwood source energy transmitted by Lu Xuan made it feel close from the bottom of its heart, which is of great benefit to spiritual plants. Thinking of this, or thought stretched out from the depths of the giant black and blue vine. Okay. Seeing it nod in agreement, Lu Xuan immediately made a vow to treat it well and carefully cultivate the young ghost vine seedlings in the flower bud. As soon as the voice fell, many vines as thick as arms on the giant ghost vine emerged with dark spiritual light, and the spiritual light merged into small rivers and poured into the flower bud at the top. The flower bud regained stability and contracted and expanded like breathing. The light blue spiritual power gushing out of Lu Xuan's fingers also increased, and he continued to cheer for the giant ghost vine. Come on, come on. It's almost born. Come on. More and more spiritual light emerged from the black and blue vines, and the streams merged into rivers, all flowing into the flower bud. When we solved the birth problems of the spiritual crane and the yin-yang cunfish before, we were just giving advice, but now we are helping with childbirth. I have consolidated my title as the Master of Animal Science. Lu Xuan sighed secretly. After a while, the vines on the giant alien ghost vine plant became shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye, and soon, pieces of things like dry bark fell off. A faint but vigorous thought came from the bud, and then the petals that had turned black and green bloomed one by one, and a small snake-like vine coiled up and lay quietly in the center. The vine was gray and inconspicuous, far from the hideous and terrifying form of the mother. The moment it appeared, the huge alien ghost vine, which was several feet high, dried and shattered at a speed that accelerated 10 times, like the last moment of an avalanche, and all of it was broken and weathered in the blink of an eye. Only one vine barely supported the fully bloomed bud, and sent it to Lu Xuan. Then, the vines circled around the new alien ghost vine seedlings, and disintegrated rapidly from bottom to top. At the last moment of disintegration, Lu Xuan felt a strong expectation and hope from the depths of its heart. After the huge alien ghost vine completely disappeared, the small vine lying quietly in the flower bud instantly came to life, and a light grey tentacle stretched out from it, as if experiencing and observing the world in front of it. Follow me in the future. I will take you to the big sect to see the world. Lu Xuan smiled and stretched out his right hand to the light grey small vine. The grey vine sensed a familiar spiritual energy from Lu Xuan, and climbed up along his palm, and entered his wide cuffs. In the end, only a small part of the body was left outside. Eat some spiritual fruit first. Lu Xuan took out a spiritual fruit from the storage bag, and placed it in front of one end of the light grey vine. Feeling the tempting fragrance of the spiritual fruit, the light grey vine mailed the spiritual fruit in the middle without hesitation. No one knew how it swallowed it, but within a few breaths, it swallowed the fruit, including the skin and core. Lu Xuan's mind was focused on the light grapevines, and a thought flashed through his mind. Demon Ghost Vine, a 5th grade demon transformed spiritual plant, evolved from the essence of generations of alien ghost vines. It likes to eat spiritual seeds, various parts of spiritual plants, and monster meat. It has an extremely keen sense of spiritual seeds. Proficient in various wood-related magic, extremely aggressive. Not of my kind, its taste must be delicious. 5th grade demon transformed spiritual plant. The thought that appeared in his mind was beyond Lu Xuan's expectation. He didn't expect that the alien ghost vine, which was originally a 4th grade spiritual plant, would actually derive a higher grade demon transformed spiritual plant. After using my life's spiritual energy and essence, I finally made it to the next level. If there are spirits in the afterlife, they would be very pleased. Lu Xuan couldn't help but sigh. He guessed that the King Mu Yuan Qi he transmitted also played a big role in his ability to make it to the 5th level. After all, it was the life essence condensed from the 5th level King Xuan deer before its death, which has many benefits for spiritual plants. Demon Ghost Vine, even the name has changed. Lu Xuan looked at the small section of light grey vines that emerged from his sleeves, and was satisfied. Although this was a demon transformed spiritual plant, and its habits were similar to those of ordinary demon beasts, it was his first 5th level spiritual plant that was completely unique to him. The holy infant fruit he had obtained before was also 5th level, but it was only a subplant, and most of the ownership was still in the hands of the monk behind the scenes. Well, you should have seen everything that just happened clearly. The new life derived from your leader has been handed over to me for care. I will take it away from this medicine garden and go to another world. If you want to leave together, I will take you along the way. If you still want to stay in this medicine garden, I won't force you. Lu Xuan sent a thought to the remaining ghost vine plants. He was in a good mood after getting a 5th grade demon transformed spiritual plant. He gave 2 choices to its kind. If you want to leave the medicine garden, you can take it away without any damage and put it on the sect mountain or in the courtyard of Jianmen town. With the life bag, there is no need to worry that they will lose their vitality on the way. However, these ghost vines did not appreciate Lu Xuan's kindness. They drilled into the spiritual soil silently and soon disappeared from Lu Xuan's sight. Lu Xuan did not force it. If they were seedlings, he would consider whether to kidnap them and cultivate them to maturity to get the light ball reward. However, those were already in a mature state. No light ball could be obtained by cultivating and raising them. Naturally, their value in his mind was much lower. He held the demon ghost vine seedling hidden in his sleeve and rushed to the other side of the medicine garden. After a while, the light grey vine emerged from his sleeve and stretched towards the left front of Lu Xuan, looking eager to try. You mean, there are high quality spirit seeds ahead? Lu Xuan asked the demon ghost vine seedling with doubt. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230 Burning Wood. The demon ghost vine stretched out a section of light grey vines, circled in front of Lu Xuan, and nodded in a very humane way. Okay, lead the way. The 5th grade demon ghost vine was so interested in it, so it was naturally not an ordinary spirit seed. Thinking of the demon ghost vine's extremely keen perception of spirit seeds, Lu Xuan did not hesitate to let it lead the way. The blessed land would clear out demon beasts every once in a while. Those who entered the blessed land were all fellow disciples. There were also Chind and Zenran behind them who were in charge of monitoring the blessed land, so the possibility of encountering danger was minimal. After a while, he came to the innermost part of the medicine garden. On a tall stone wall, there was a small door with complex runes painted on it. The light grey vine pointed in the direction of the small door, shaking its head, very excited. Lu Xuan walked to the door. The runes on the door were just some simple restrictions. A jade seal kept enlarging. When it was equal to the area of the small door, it brought a huge force and smashed down. On the door, runes flickered, trying to resist the violent invasion of Fengayu jade seal. In a face-to-face encounter, the small door shattered into more than 10 pieces. Lu Xuan held the purple lightning sword in one hand and the 4th grade Xiaohei sword talisman in the other, and slowly sneaked in. Under the guidance of the demon ghost vine seedling, he turned a few corners and pushed open a heavy stone door. A hot breath hit his face, and what came into view was a world of fire. The ground was paved with flat and neat red slabs, and the walls were made of red spiritual wood. Countless firebirds of different shapes swayed and danced in the air. As their flaming wings danced, wisps of tiny flames fell from the air, landed on the ground, and merged into the red slabs. At the top of the palace, there was a huge fire cloud, which was layered and enveloped the entire palace. A pair of fiery red phoenix phantoms appeared and disappeared in the sea of clouds, with light gold lines on their red wings and red flames lingering around. Lu Xuan's sharp eyes found that a piece of charred wood was floating in the fire cloud. The wood was extremely inconspicuous against the background of the pair of fire phoenixes, but the pair of illusory phoenix figures had always been within a certain range of the charred wood. This is the high quality spiritual seed that the demon ghost vine seedling discovered. Lu Xuan felt the urgency of the demon ghost vine seedling in his sleeves to crawl out, and he was probably sure that this piece of charred wood was the high quality spiritual seed it sensed. However, Lu Xuan did not want it to show up. He looked across the palace, and 3 fellow monks were staring at him in surprise. Among the 3, one had a handsome face, holding a strange shaped flying sword in his hand. The flying swords were slender and numerous, and dozens of flying swords decreased from bottom to top. At first glance, it looked like a peacock spreading its tail. There was also a female cultivator wearing a luxurious robe, and the whole person exuded a graceful temperament. The remaining person had an ordinary appearance, but his eyes were extremely sharp, like a sword. Among the 3, the ordinary young man was in the early stage of foundation building, and the other 2 were in the middle stage of foundation building. Hello, 3 senior brothers. I'm Lu Xuan. Hello, I hope I didn't cause any trouble to you 3 senior brothers and sisters by barging in here. Lu Xuan has always lived in seclusion. He had never met these 3 people before, so he greeted them respectfully. He glanced at the strange flying sword in the handsome young man's hand casually, and instantly recalled the flying sword named Sword Peacock in the hands of the inner sect's female disciple in the secret realm, when he was in the market. Hello, junior brother Lu. We have not been in this palace for a long time, so naturally there is no trouble or no trouble. The handsome young man said with a smile. His smile was sincere and kind, making people feel like spring breeze. Excuse me for being rude. I wonder how junior brother Lu entered this palace? The graceful woman asked. In order to be able to enter this palace, the 3 of them had made many preparations when they were in the sect, and it took a lot of time for the treasure to break through various restrictions and successfully enter the palace. Lu Xuan was only in the early stage of foundation building, and he could even find that he had not been promoted for a long time, so he was very interested in how Lu Xuan entered the palace. I originally wanted to pick some ghost vines in the medicine garden, but I didn't expect that I would go deeper and deeper and finally find a small door. There is a not so difficult restriction on the small door. I tried many methods to break through it, and then I entered this palace in a daze, and met 3 senior brothers and sisters. Lu Xuan said vaguely, half truthfully. He couldn't admit that he was guided by a newly born demon transformed spirit plant seedling to find it. The 3 of them were speechless for a while after hearing this. They tried every possible way and racked their brains to enter the palace, but they didn't expect that there was such a shortcut in the medicine garden that could easily enter it. Junior brother Lu is really lucky. I admire you. The handsome young man said with a smile. Senior brother, you are too kind. I wonder what the origin of the pair of fire phoenixes in the sea of clouds on the top is. Can you tell me something? Lu Xuan pretended not to notice the abnormality of the charred wood in the fire, and asked curiously. That pair of fire phoenixes is an extremely rare demon beast spirit. There are also many high-grade fire ores and spiritual woods in the palace. If you are interested, you can get more. You can exchange them for a lot of good things after taking them out of the blessed land. I see. Lu Xuan nodded to show that he understood. Seeing this, the 3 looked at each other with a hint of joy in their eyes. Although Lu Xuan's early foundation building cultivation level did not pose any threat to their acquisition of treasures, they were afraid that Lu Xuan might get the charred wood by chance. Therefore, the less Lu Xuan knew, the better it would be for them. Since you accidentally entered this place, you must work hard to get a share of it. I'm just an ordinary spiritual plant master with average cultivation, and not good at fighting. I hope the three brothers and sisters will show mercy to me, and let me get some leftovers. Lu Xuan said sincerely. Haha, junior brother Lu, you are too polite. The treasure is for those who are destined to get it. Although junior brother's cultivation is a bit weaker, maybe he can be favored by the treasure, and get a great opportunity. The handsome young man laughed when he saw Lu Xuan showing weakness. The other two also smiled. Although Lu Xuan's sudden entry broke the three people's plan, they were relieved when they realized that his cultivation was not as good as the weakest ordinary young man. The peacock sword in the handsome young man's hand instantly opened to the maximum, and infinite sword intent radiated. A crescent moon appeared behind the graceful woman, emitting a cold light, flying around her. The ordinary young cultivator held a huge black sword in both hands. The sword body was painted with mysterious and obscure patterns, and dark light flashed from time to time. Crack. Feeling the hostility coming from below, a pair of fire phoenixes in the fire cloud chirped together, and the cry resounded throughout the hall. In the air, layers of flames appeared on the bodies of many firebirds that were flying wantonly. Endless flames occupied every corner, and the entire palace became extremely hot in an instant. The demon ghost vine seedling in Lu Xuan's sleeve quietly retreated, and was blocked by Lu Xuan under the hidden spirit cloak, slowly approaching his chest, and only calmed down under the nourishment of the cool breath of the immaculate jade. Chapter 231 Choosing a Master. Inside the palace, more and more flames emerged from the firebirds. In the fire cloud, the phantoms of the fire phoenixes cried out crisply. Suddenly, endless red flames poured down like heavy rain, attacking Lu Xuan and his companions in the palace. The peacock sword in the handsome young man's hand suddenly opened, and dozens of sharp flying swords shot out in a fan shape. The sword intent was continuous and leak-proof, cutting all the approaching flames into nothingness. The cold crescent moon behind the graceful woman turned around, and a white aura shield enveloped her. The chill was pervasive, isolating all the invading hot flames from outside. The huge black sword in the hand of the ordinary-looking young man, a dark light rose from the sword body, and it kept swallowing the red flames falling from the sky. The Zunli sword pill in Lu Xuan's dantian was spinning rapidly, and countless tiny black sword beams shot out violently, condensing into a hurricane, with him as the center, constantly spinning. Once a flame fell into it, it would be crushed by countless sword beams in an instant. After resisting the initial fire attack, the three of them used their own methods to frantically attack the many firebirds flying around. From time to time, a firebird exploded and turned into wisps of small flames. After clearing some of the firebirds, the three of them freed their hands and flew to the fire cloud. In the fire cloud, the phantoms of the fire phoenixes flew faster and faster, and the piece of charred wood hidden in the fire cloud had a dark golden light flowing. Suddenly, the fire phoenixes merged into one, turning into a huge firebird dozens of feet long, with its wings covering most of the top of the palace. With a gentle flap, dark golden spears several feet long, burning with red flames, fell from the air. A fist-sized milky white bead flew out of the storage bag of the handsome young man, spinning rapidly, and the cold air instantly extended to more than 10 feet away. The spear fell into the cold area and its speed slowed down a lot. Until it was about to get close to the young man, it collapsed from the tip to the tail of the spear. A cold dragon roar sounded, and a water dragon more than 10 feet long emerged from the graceful woman, shooting at the huge dark golden firebird in the air at a high speed. Not far away, a pale white giant net several dozen feet long and wide quietly surrounded it. It seems that these three brothers and sisters came prepared. Whether it is the beads, the water dragon, or the giant net, they all contain rich water spirit power, which has a great restraining effect on the phoenix phantom. In addition, they cooperate well with each other, and it is estimated that they will soon overwhelm the phoenix phantom. While Lu Xuan urged the small hurricane formed by the Zunli sword light to resist the invasion of flames, he carefully observed the situation on the scene. How can I get that piece of magical charred wood? He secretly thought about countermeasures. 2 in the middle stage of foundation building, and 1 in the early stage of foundation building were well prepared. Under the joint attack, the magical charred wood gradually lost, even if it had the advantage of home court. A mournful sound sounded, and the huge dark golden firebird turned into flames all over the sky. A pair of phoenix phantoms shot out from it and drilled into the charred wood in the fire cloud. The heavy fire cloud also had a tendency to collapse. Right now, Lu Xuan suppressed his excitement and turned into a floating light and flew to the location of the charred wood. The other 3 people reacted just as quickly. The handsome young man pinched his hands and a huge illusory palm grabbed the charred wood. The graceful woman's clothes fluttered, and a long white silk came to the charred wood in an instant. Lu Xuan's cultivation was weaker after all. Seeing that the illusory palm and the long silk were about to grab the charred wood, he suddenly had an idea. The light green light ball in his danshan rotated at the fastest speed, and a strong green light permeated his body. Greenwood source energy is a great tonic for spiritual plants, and has a natural affinity. Since the charred wood is a high-grade special spiritual species, it is very likely to be attracted by the greenwood source energy. As expected, the still struggling charred wood felt the rich plant spirit energy on Lu Xuan's body below, and a layer of dark golden light instantly emerged on the surface. The speed increased several times, rushed out of the encirclement of the handsome young man and the graceful woman, and penetrated through the giant net, and fell into Lu Xuan's hands. Lu Xuan was able to observe the charred wood in his hand from a close distance. The charred wood was more than 1 foot long, and about 3 inches wide. There were many dark golden small cracks on the surface, like traces formed by burning in a fierce fire. In the central area, countless tiny cracks formed a dark golden pattern, which was very similar to the dark golden giant firebird just now, with its wings spread out, in a soaring posture. Feeling the rich greenwood source energy on Lu Xuan's body, the dark golden patterned spirit light flowed, as if there were some subtle changes, and it looked lifelike and ready to come out. Junior brother Lu, can you give me this piece of charred wood? It is my main goal to enter the Langai blessed land this time. It is of great use to me. If you can bear the pain and give it up, I will pay you a satisfactory reward. The handsome young monk landed in front of Lu Xuan gracefully and said gently. He looked calm on the surface, but his heart was beating. After preparing for so long and working hard, the 3 of them thought that getting the piece of phoenix tree was a sure thing, but unexpectedly, it suddenly fell into Lu Xuan's hands. If it was seized by legitimate means, it would be fine, but the charred wood took the initiative to throw itself into Lu Xuan's arms, and finally let Lu Xuan, who only had the cultivation of the early stage of foundation building, get it. How could he tolerate this? With such an attitude now, his cultivation is already quite good. Brother, do you want this piece of black wood? If it is normal, it is not impossible. Lu Xuan turned the charred wood in his hand and changed the subject. But this piece of charred wood suddenly fell into my hands, which means that we have a deep fate. If I give it away, it would be against the will of heaven. Besides, it's just a piece of charred wood. There are many high-grade spiritual minerals and fire spirits in this palace. Brother, you can focus on them, he said calmly. This charred wood can make the 5th grade demon ghost fine feel it at such a distance, so it is naturally extraordinary. Lu Xuan casually found a reason and declined the handsome young man. How about this, junior brother Lu? I will use a rare 3rd grade flying sword to exchange for the charred wood in your hand. The young man took out a golden long sword from his storage bag and said anxiously. Not far away, the graceful woman and the ordinary young man quietly gathered around and stood on both sides of the handsome young man, with a faint tendency to surround Lu Xuan. Sorry, brother, I'm not interested in other things, except spiritual plants. This piece of charred wood makes me very curious. I will not use it to exchange for other treasures. Seeing this, Lu Xuan took 2 steps back and said in a firm tone. Junior brother Lu, the 3 of us are all direct disciples of a giant and Zenran in our sect. You have just been promoted to the foundation building stage. Are you sure you want to cause trouble with the 3 of us? The graceful woman said coldly. Are you threatening me, senior sister? The black sword light around Lu Xuan sped up a bit. Chapter 232, Poinciana. You and I are from the same sect, so naturally we won't threaten you. The graceful woman looked at Lu Xuan with an indifferent expression, without any emotion in her eyes. I just hope that you can have some self-knowledge. Whether it's cultivation or family background, the 3 of us are much stronger than you, junior brother. We gave you a way out, but you did the opposite. I think you have already seen that the charred is a rare treasure, but you are only in the early stage of foundation building. It's easy for people to covet the treasure, so it's better to give it to us." Hearing the words of the graceful woman, Lu Xuan's mouth corners rose, his eyes were firm. Senior brother said before that treasures are obtained by those who are destined to get them. Now this piece of charred wood has belonged to me, so the 3 senior brothers and sisters should not covet it. Don't think about taking it by force. There are people watching above. Lu Xuan pointed to the top of his head and said lightly, "If you don't accept my toast, you'll have to drink a forfeit. Today, I will take back that piece of poinsettia from you, even if I'm punished and put in solitary confinement afterwards. I will not hesitate." Seeing Lu Xuan so stubborn, the handsome young man who had been holding back finally couldn't control his inner feelings and flew into a rage. Spiritual energy gathered rapidly, and a spiritual hand of 10 feet in length grabbed Lu Xuan fiercely. Lu Xuan remained motionless, and when the spiritual hand approached, he clenched his fist, his finger bones as crystal as jade, and punched the huge spiritual hand. "You are trying to stop a chariot with a mantis arm. You overestimate your own strength." Seeing that Lu Xuan actually wanted to resist his giant hand with his flesh, the handsome young man sneered. The scene in front of him was beyond his expectation. Lu Xuan's body was only slightly shaken twice under the attack of the giant hand, and the spiritual hand was vulnerable to the attack of Lu Xuan's small fist, and instantly turned into nothingness. He had taken a few drops of the 3rd grade golden marrow jade liquid to enhance his physical strength, and swallowed the 3rd grade jade scale fruit. In addition, he practiced the 2 major bodybuilding exercises, glass bone forging method and Takesu transformation into dragon chapter, and his physical strength had long surpassed most 3rd grade magic weapons. With his physical body alone, he easily blocked the attack of the handsome young man. "Ha!" the handsome young man exclaimed, put away his contempt for Lu Xuan, and instantly stretched out the peacock sword in his hand, and dozens of flying swords like feathers shot out. On the left, the graceful woman was unwilling to fall behind, and her spiritual power surged, and a huge water dragon bared its fangs and claws and flew towards Lu Xuan. On the right, the black giant sword in the hands of the ordinary young man turned into a black light and attacked Lu Xuan silently. Lu Xuan was calm in his heart, and the Zunli sword light in his danshan continued to flow out, merging with the sword light around him, like a black hurricane, sweeping towards the many flying swords. At the same time, a 3rd grade water dragon talisman quietly slipped out of his sleeve, and an equally huge water dragon instantly condensed and formed, flying towards the water dragon technique performed by the graceful woman. A delicate and small jade seal rolled towards the ordinary young man, and its volume expanded rapidly. In a few moments, it was as big as a small mountain, carrying a force of 10,000 pounds, and slammed into the black giant sword. The sword body was deeply dented under the sudden attack of the 3rd grade Fengyu Jade Seal, and the ordinary young man who controlled the giant sword couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. I don't know if it was because of anger, or simply because he was implicated by the giant sword. The 3 people attacked together, but they were blocked by Lu Xuan at the same time. "I didn't expect that you, junior brother Lu, hid so deeply." The 3 people showed surprise on their faces at the same time. 2 mid-stage foundation building cultivators and 1 early-stage foundation building cultivator attacked together, but they were easily blocked by Lu Xuan, who had just been promoted to an inner disciple. Even if it was just this one attack, it was enough to show how powerful he was. Lu Xuan was calm. He knew that this was just the first encounter. It was not that easy to get away with the strange charred wood. The joint attack of the 3 people was blocked, and there was a fleeting opportunity. Lu Xuan acted decisively. A talisman that was neither gold nor jade appeared in his hand. The talisman was shaped like a sword tip, and there were waves surging on the surface. It was the 4th grade Xiaohei sword talisman obtained after picking a sword raising good. Under the traction of spiritual power, the waves in the talisman surged violently, and suddenly, infinite sword intent shot out from it. The sword intent was like a huge wave, with bursts of sword whistles, and rolled towards the 3 handsome young men with an irresistible momentum. The 3 people's spiritual consciousness instantly realized the horror of the huge wave sword intent, and each used means, either offering powerful defensive magic weapons, or using powerful escape methods to stay away from the infinite sword intent. Seeing this, Lu Xuan took back the Fengaiyu Jade Seal without hesitation and turned away. He followed the route he had come from, his figure like a floating light, and in a few breaths he floated to the medicine garden. Then, earthy yellow spiritual power emerged from his body, and he instantly drilled into the ground. After a moment, Lu Xuan's spiritual sense sensed the surroundings, and after confirming that there was nothing abnormal, he drilled out of the spiritual soil of the medicine garden. He took out several Puan pills from his storage bag and swallowed them in one gulp, recovering the spiritual power that had been lost by half. The waves on the surface of the 4th grade Xiaohe sword talisman in his hand were much thinner than before. In order to give himself a brief opportunity to escape, he stimulated nearly half of the sword intent in the sword talisman. The 4th grade Xiaohe sword talisman can severely injure or even kill a cultivator in the middle or late stage of foundation building with a full strength attack. Half of the sword intent attacked the 3 people, which could buy him a lot of time. Use a 3rd grade water dragon talisman and half of a 4th grade Xiaohe sword talisman. In addition, there is the Zunlei sword light in the Danshan, and the King Mu Yuan key, both of which are extremely difficult to replenish. He secretly calculated in his heart, feeling a little heartbroken for his efforts. However, these losses should not be a big deal compared to this chardwood. Lu Xuan excitedly took out the magical chardwood with the Phoenix Phantom, cast the earth drawing technique, and buried it in the spiritual soil. His mind was focused on the chardwood in the shallow layer of the spiritual soil, and suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. Phoenix wood, a 6th grade ancient spiritual plant, is the wood of the ancient true spirit beast Phoenix Nirvana, and there is a trace of Phoenix essence and spirituality left in it. It is of great benefit to the growth of fire-type monsters, especially fire-type monster birds. They complement each other. With long-term nourishment, there is a slight possibility of improving the monster bird's grade. Mature spiritual wood can be used to refine fire-type magic weapons. It needs to grow in a fire spirit environment and be nurtured and raised with 3rd grade or higher strange fire. Will it be burned to black ash or reborn from the fire? 6th grade spiritual plant. It's still an ancient variety. Lu Xuan's joy was beyond words. In front of the 6th grade spiritual plant, let alone half a 4th grade Xiaohe sword talisman, even 100 of them would be nothing. He took a deep breath and calmed down his excited mood. Next, I just need to lie low and avoid the search of those 3 people. Everything will be fine after I take the royal point Xiander out. The sect has strict rules and regulations. As long as I stay in the sect and follow the rules, no one can deal with me. Besides, I have the support of the sect's guardian spirit beast, and I have a close relationship with Shenye, the master of Sinner Hall, and Jepu, the true disciple. I also helped Jiandan Zenrangu Jiankang to solve the obsession of King Xuan Deer. At present, I'm not an object that can be bullied at will. Lu Xuan thought secretly. Chapter 233 The Fantastic Journey of the Young Demon Vine. Thinking of this, Lu Xuan calmed down a lot. The most important thing now is to survive this period of time. When it's time to leave the blessed land, we don't have to worry about them coming to fight for the phoenix tree again. He thought to himself, and after a little thought, he decided to go to the ancient forest at the beginning. Let's go see my wood spirit friends on the way. The area there is vast and complex, with many towering trees covering it, and it is difficult to be discovered if you hide in it. The dark golden hidden spirit cloak on his body exuded countless nearly transparent silk threads, and a layer of hazy spirit covered his entire body, hiding both his figure and his spiritual energy. A few days later, Lu Xuan walked out of the ancient forest with a smile on his face, holding the sword order in his hand. After sending you thousands of miles, we must say goodbye. Let's say goodbye here. No need to send you off again. At the edge of the ancient forest, several blurred faces emerged from the drooping branches, looking at Lu Xuan, who was walking away reluctantly. My wood spirit friends are really too enthusiastic. Lu Xuan looked back and sighed in his heart. He had been staying in the depths of the ancient forest for the past few days and had made friends with several wood spirits. After letting them taste the beauty of the greenwood source energy, he had been absorbing the rich spiritual energy of the plants and trees in the ancient forest. During the absorption process, 1% of the successfully converted greenwood source energy was transmitted to the wood spirits, and the two sides reached a mutually beneficial cooperation. These wood spirits were nourished by the green wood source energy and were full of energy. Their blurred facial features became much clearer. Lu Xuan would naturally get more benefits. The volume of the light blue light ball in his dantian had reached its limit, rotating slowly, looking bloated. As he walked, the surface of the sword order appeared full of starlight, and then the starlight condensed into a star channel, sucking Lu Xuan and many inner disciples in the Langai blessed land into it. Finally back in the sky, countless stars were moving in a trajectory that implied the rhyme of Taoism, and from time to time, powerful sword energy passed through the sky like a meteor. Under the cover of the spiritual energy, the peaks under his feet were like tiny ants, looming. Lu Xuan looked around. Most of his fellow disciples had happy expressions on their faces, which showed that they had gained a lot from this trip to the blessed land. Of course, there were also a few people who looked unwilling, angry, or regretful, including the 3 handsome young men. The 3 stared at Lu Xuan with strong anger in their eyes. Lu Xuan was calm and relaxed, closing his eyes to rest, and completely ignored the 3 angry gazes that were almost tangible. He might have been a little timid in the blessed land, but when he returned to the sect and got the phoenix tree, he was fearless. Junior brother Lu, did you offend senior sister Bei's group of 3? I noticed that they looked at you with some unfriendly eyes. While Lu Xuan closed his eyes to rest, a soft voice came to his ears. When he opened his eyes, he saw Liu Su not far away, with his head slightly lowered, looking at Lu Xuan without leaving any trace. There was a dispute with them because of a treasure in the blessed land. Lu Xuan explained simply through voice transmission. It seems that junior brother is the winner. Liu Su's voice was a little lively. However, junior brother Lu should be more careful in the future. Senior sister Bei has a proud personality and a high level of cultivation. I'm afraid she won't suffer easily. Besides, the 3 of them are all disciples of a Jinden Zenran in the sect, and their backgrounds are extraordinary. If junior brother suffers, I can introduce you to a Jinden Zenran. With your attainments in the way of spiritual plants and spiritual beasts, I'm sure you will be able to become his disciple. At the end, Liu Su persuaded Lu Xuan. Thank you for your concern, senior sister Liu, but I appreciate your kindness. I have been staying in the mountains and rarely go out, let alone go to the secret realm, to seek opportunities and fight with others. Therefore, even if you want to harm me, you won't have that opportunity easily. Lu Xuan politely refused. When everyone arrived, the Zhaoshan Xingdao Great Array silently operated and sent everyone to their designated locations. I'm back. Lu Xuan stepped on the ground at the foot of the mountain and felt more stable than ever before. He passed through the Liaguan Fu Array and entered the mountain area. 1 foot was still outside the formation when a huge bull landed on his head, then bounced high and landed on their heads again. I haven't seen you for such a short time. You've grown fat again. Lu Xuan said helplessly, feeling the increasingly heavy Feng Falcon on his head. On Feng Falcon's ankle, there was a fiery red dragon, which was the Lihuo Jiao, that changed from a necklace to an anklet after rapid growth. The cloud-stepping lynx rarely showed its true feelings, and its soft roar was full of meaning, but with a strong smell of earth residue, which mixed together and was unique. After Lu Xuan comforted the 3 children a little, he couldn't wait to return to the house. This time he entered the Langai blessed land. He gained a lot. Wuling soil suitable for most spiritual plants, 2 kidnapped 3rd grade two-headed armadillo cubs, 4 soul seeds of Yunling pine, a 5th grade demon ghost vine that was half vine and half beast, and the last 6th grade ancient spiritual plant, phoenix tree. In addition, the King Mu source energy in the dantian was fully replenished, and a lot of high-grade spiritual plants and monster skeletons were obtained. It's a pity that the sect's blessed land will not be opened easily. It will probably take many years for me to enter it next time. Lu Xuan sighed with some regret. He shook his sleeves, and the light grey thin vines that had been eager to try rushed out immediately. The vines fell to the ground and swam towards the mountain spiritual field like a small snake. The moment it entered the mountain, it felt the large number of spiritual plants inside, and it was already greedy. 2nd grade spiritual plant, slender, easy to swallow, very moist, mark. It left a light grey mark under a 2nd grade water firefly grass. It smells so good, mark. A light grey mark was also left on the ice radish fruit and the flame fruit plants. What kind of spiritual plant is this? It should taste very strong. Next to the wind and thunder sword grass, it felt the sword energy with wind and thunder that seeped out from the sword grass, and couldn't help but want to conquer it. Wow. A 4th grade spiritual plant. It also comes with demon insect snacks. So thoughtful. Must mark. In front of the 4th grade black insect vine, the demon ghost vine hid in the dark, observing the many insects coming in and out, as well as the more than 10 insect chambers condensed on the black insect vine, and the vine was so excited that it kept jumping. Huh. What kind of food is this? Why haven't you eaten it yet? I feel like something is growing inside my body. In the pink miasma, stimulated by the breath of lust, the demon ghost vine looked at the new part of the vine and wondered. On the mountain, all kinds of rare and high-grade spiritual plants dazzled it. Everything seemed like a dream. What did I eat in the medicine garden before? Compared with here, it's not even as good as chaff. From the blessed land medicine garden to the mountain spiritual field. Tempting. I can't go back. Make up for the leave chapter. Chapter 234. You are still just a child. Just when the demonic vine seedlings were intoxicated by the infatuated atmosphere of the immortal peach, Xuan's spiritual sense also noticed that something was wrong here. He jumped several times and arrived at the area where the magical peaches were planted. I saw a faint pink miasma, and on the light gray vines of the demon vine, tentacle-like thin vines grew out of nowhere. The thin vines stayed in the miasma, and they were restless and restless. Xuan's mind focused on the demon vine, and he immediately realized that it had fallen into the lustful trap of the mystic peach. Although its grade is 2 levels higher than the 3rd grade magical peach, it has only been conceived for a short time, and has limited resistance. The 3rd grade spiritual plant's magical peach has a natural temptation for it, so it accidentally fell into the trap. You're just a child. How can you be covered with tentacles? Xuan said with a look of regret, and then a purifying spell was cast on the grey ghost vine. The clear spiritual light swept across every part of the vines, and then, many small tentacle-like vines trembled and retracted into the body of the demon vine. The demon vine seedlings sensed Xuan's presence, and crawled into his sleeves in a daze. In order to remove the influence of one spiritual plant, I used a purifying spell on another spiritual plant. What kind of weird things are these like mine? Xuan shook his head and returned with the demon vine seedlings to the courtyard. He pulled out the demonic vine that was tightly wrapped around his arm, with a serious look on his face. The demonic vine has a hobby of devouring spiritual plants and spiritual seeds. There are so many spiritual plants planted in the mountain peaks, so it must be cultivated from an early age into the habit of not eating indiscriminately. If it really eats a rare spiritual plant seedling, a high-grade spiritual seed, then I will feel very distressed. Stand, I have something to tell you. Xuan said in a solemn tone when he saw that the demonic vine had the tendency to burrow into his sleeves again. I planted and cultivated the spiritual plants on the entire mountain. It took a lot of time and energy. You must not eat them before they are mature. If you are caught by me once, I will kill all the vines. Cut them all off. Xuan pointed at the light grey vines of the demonic vine and said viciously. The demonic ghost vine seedling lifted one end of its vine and nodded slightly. However, as long as you are obedient, you will have to eat. When they mature, the branches, leaves, spiritual fruits, etc. will be enough for you to eat. He stretched out his hand and tapped the top of the demon vine, and the grey vine followed him. His fingers climbed all the way up and penetrated into Xuan's sleeves. After appeasing the demon vine seedlings, Xuan took out the birth bag and brushed it with spiritual power. 2 two-headed armadillo cubs appeared on the ground blankly. It is less than a foot long, and its scales are still small and soft. The moment they saw Xuan, the 2 cubs seemed to recognize Xuan, who had snatched them out of the nest. Their 4 slender heads roared at him, their voices still childish and fierce. At that time, your entire tribe was mobilized, and only 2 of your cubs were left, waiting for food. I met you. I saw that you were pitiful, and had no one to take care of you, so I rescued you. Is this how you treat your saviors? Xuan, he raised his eyebrows. The 2 cubs still looked fierce. Whichever head stops barking, I will feed it this piece of spiritual mineral. He threw a piece of white spiritual mineral in his hand, and said to the 2 armadillo monsters. When he saw that one head was no longer able to roar, he stretched out the spiritual mineral in front of that head. The sound of clicking continued, and the hard spiritual mineral was chewed into pieces instantly, giving the other head close to Kai Kai an immersive feeling. Its eyes widened with anger, and it turned to look at its other half with complicated eyes. With the first head taking the lead, the remaining 3 heads quickly became quiet, and for a while, the clicking sounds were endless. Xuan saw that the 2-headed armadillo cubs had become honest, and placed them in a rock wall on the mountain peak. The 2-headed armadillo cub had an earthy yellow aura emerging from its body. Its 2 pairs of sharp claws dug a few times and immediately burrowed into the rock wall. As expected of the 2-headed armadillos who are good at earth escape, they are still just cubs, and their talents are already fully demonstrated. Xuan's spiritual consciousness penetrated deep into the rock wall, and noticed that the 2-headed armadillo cubs had already built a simple lair. Calm down. He found an open space on the mountain peak, and used the Dachan realm's earth drawing technique. The underground structure changed rapidly, and 2 spiritual fields were quickly reclaimed. A large amount of Valing soil was carried out from the storage bag, and covered the surface of the spiritual field, accumulating into a thick layer. In the spiritual field, earth yellow faint spiritual light flashed from the surface of the spiritual soil, and one could feel the extremely rich power of life contained in it. He scraped the inside of the 2-headed armadillo's nest in the blessed land, and obtained a lot of Wuling soil, enough to cultivate many spiritual plants. Most of the Wuling soil was used to pave 2 spiritual fields, and the remaining small part was evenly sprinkled by Xuan across the mountain peak, adding some fertility to the entire mountain peak. He planned to use the 2 spiritual fields only to plant higher grade spiritual plants. There was no need to transplant the ones that had been planted before. He happened to have 4 4th grade spiritual pine spiritual seeds in his hand. He took out 4 spiritual seeds from his storage bag. A black sword light as thin as a cicada's wings shot out from his danchan, and he carefully chipped off the amber that wrapped the spiritual plants. Not long after, the slender spirit species protected inside revealed its true face. After planting into the spiritual field covered with Wuling soil, a piece of information flashed through my mind. Yunling pine, a 4th grade spiritual plant, requires spiritual communication and nourishment during the growth process. When mature, it can enhance the spiritual consciousness of monks. The spiritual seed is in a dormant state and needs to be nourished by spiritual consciousness for a period of time before it can return to its original state. It's good if it can be successfully planted. As for using spiritual consciousness to warm it for a period of time, although it is a bit troublesome, it is nothing compared to the value of a 4th grade spiritual plant. Xuan sighed with emotion. Said, he planted the other 3 spirit seeds of Yunling pine into the spiritual soil respectively, and strands of spiritual consciousness slowly seeped into the spirit seeds, quietly nourishing them. Unknowingly, a faint vitality appeared in Yunling pine spirit seed. Although it was weak, it was extremely strong, revealing an indomitable will. After the red cloud pine in Linyangfang City, the Yunling pine is the 2nd type of pine spiritual plant planted. However, the red cloud pine is only a 1st grade plant, and its value is much lower than the 4th grade Yunling pine. Of course, there is a huge difference in the difficulty of cultivation and the effectiveness of spiritual fruits. As far as I know, there is no such spiritual plant in the sect that can be exchanged for spiritual plants that can enhance the spiritual awareness of monks. You can imagine how precious they are, you know. Xuan sighed and flew down from a wide crack. The hot breath hit his face, and the magma river was surging underground. From time to time, hot magma would rise up and fall on the surrounding stone walls, stirring up bursts of green smoke. Xuan stepped on a raised boulder, holding a charred wood full of dark golden cracks in his hand. The second update will be late, sorry. Chapter 235 Yunshan Jade Scroll. Under the stimulation of the earth fire, the phoenix pattern on the charred wood became brighter, and spiritual light surged in the dark golden thin cracks. On the pattern, the wings with light golden lines changed slightly, causing the earth fire river below to surge violently, and a hot fire spirit rushed to the bottom of the charred wood. The fire spirit is still not enough. Xuan looked at the dark golden shadow on the phoenix tree and muttered softly. He brought this 6th grade ancient spiritual plant phoenix tree into the earth fire tributary to try whether he could successfully cultivate the phoenix tree under the stimulation of the earth fire. Unfortunately, the phoenix shadow could not even rush out of the charred wood, let alone soar into the sky. It seems that I can only find some high-grade strange fire to cultivate and nourish the growth of the phoenix tree. Xuan sighed secretly. He performed the earth drawing technique, and a depression quietly appeared on the stone wall near the earth fire tributary. He carefully placed the charred wood in the small hole, intending to use the fire spirit here to retain more of the charred wood's spirituality. Even if it cannot promote its growth, as long as it can maintain the vitality of the phoenix tree, Xuan will be satisfied. After dealing with the gains from the Langai blessed land, Xuan had time to carefully observe the growth of the spiritual plants on the mountain. After not returning to the cave for a while, the spiritual plants planted in various places have changed a lot. The 16 second grade water fireflies that were left for condensing seeds before, each condensed several blue seeds on the top of the slender leaves. The seeds are like the surface of a clear lake, exuding a slight chill. The spiritual consciousness penetrates into it and can feel the rich water spirit inside. The water fireflies that have been mature for some time have become dry, which is in sharp contrast to the spiritual seeds, condensed on the top, as if the essence of the whole body in the plant has been integrated into the seeds. Xuan's spiritual power is running, and a thin layer of frost suddenly condenses on the spiritual seeds, and the vitality inside seems to be frozen. He carefully picked it and put it in a special jade box. Next, as long as it is processed in a special way and stored for a period of time, it can be put into planting. The number of spiritual seeds condensed from the 2nd grade water firefly grass is nearly half that of the non-grade spiritual firefly grass. 16 water fireflies finally condensed 85 spiritual seeds. However, Xuan was already quite satisfied. After all, the cultivation reward brought by the water firefly grass was 10 times that of the spiritual firefly grass. Even if only some of the 85 plants had light balls that could produce cultivation, he would benefit greatly. A small part of the 85 second grade water fireflies will continue to condense spiritual seeds, and the other part is estimated to bring me at least 20 to 30 years of cultivation rewards. I really want to make progress, Xuan said with emotion. Without the cultivation rewards brought by the light balls, his cultivation progress can be said to be stagnant. With his ordinary qualifications, it is unknown when he can break through to the middle stage of foundation building. As for the previously mutated fire spirit seeds, due to the high loss rate of the spirit seeds and the fact that he had already obtained the 2nd grade water firefly grass, Xuan had no choice but to give up and focus on the water firefly grass. After dealing with the problem of water firefly grass condensation, Xuan continued to inspect the spiritual field. Little grass, come here. When passing by a spiritual field, he saw the grass puppet patrolling tirelessly, so he summoned it. After the grass puppet was promoted to the 2nd grade, Xuan used King Mu Yuan Key many times to promote its growth and change, and its intelligence improved a lot. Hearing this, he looked up at Xuan, and with a huge head made of grey grass, he took slender steps and rushed over quickly. A wisp of light green spiritual energy poured into the chest of the grass puppet, and its central area instantly turned emerald green. The emerald green spiritual light continued to spread around, and finally, in a few breaths, it turned into a green grass man with a big head and a small body. After dyeing the grass puppet green, Xuan continued to patrol the spiritual field. Another jade scale fruit is ripe. When he came to the area where the jade scale fruit was planted, his spiritual sense swept over and saw the growth status of the spiritual plant at a glance. After picking 2 before, there are a total of 6 left. This time, when he came back, his spiritual sense checked and quickly found that there were 2 jade scale fruits that had entered the fully mature stage. He held his breath, his palm turned into glass finger bones, carefully grasped the jade scale fruit and pulled it off the thin jade-like leaves. The jade scale fruit in his hand exuded a cool breath of jade, and the jade skin on the surface was lined up like fish scales, revealing the crystal clear spiritual fruit in the middle. Good quality, not bad. Xuan sighed, and a thought flashed through his mind. Jade scale fruit, a 3rd grade spiritual plant. can improve the physical strength of cultivators or monsters after taking it, and can also be used to refine certain body refining pills. Lu Xuan sighed and reached out to the white light ball that emerged with expectation. The light ball flickered slightly at the place where the jade scale fruit was picked, hidden in the thin jade leaves, looming. The moment he reached out to touch the light ball turned into countless light points and poured into Lu Xuan's body. Harvest a 3rd grade jade scale fruit and obtain the 4th grade spiritual or Qigong jade. A piece of ore the size of a baby's head appeared in Lu Xuan's hand. It was red in color, with a bumpy surface. Inside, you could vaguely see a substance like chalcedony flowing slowly. This Qigong is a 4th grade spiritual ore, which contains a lot of jade essence, and can be used to refine flying swords and magic tools. Although I got a piece of Qigong last time, the 4th grade spiritual ore, the more the better. Lu Xuan muttered, and focused his attention on another fully mature jade scale fruit. Superior quality jade scale fruit. The previous 3 jade scale fruits were all of good quality, bringing a 3rd grade magic tool Fengyu jade seal and 2 4th grade spiritual or Qigong with rich rewards. Therefore, this top quality jade scale fruit naturally made Lu Xuan look forward to it a little more. He didn't care about the jade scale fruit in his hand, and quickly put it into the storage bag. Then, looking at the white light ball hanging high between the jade leaves, he gently jumped up and took it. The moment he touched the ball of light, it turned into countless light spots, flowing along his shoulders and into his body. A thought flashed through his mind. Harvest a 3rd grade jade scale fruit and obtain the 4th grade treasure Yunshan jade scroll. A delicate jade scroll appeared in his hand. The jade scroll was about 3 inches long and 1 inch wide. It was crystal clear and you could vaguely see white spiritual power as thin as hair flowing inside. Holding it in your hand, you feel a cool feeling, as if you can drive away all the evil thoughts and restlessness in your heart. With your mind focused, Lu Xuan quickly learned the detailed information about the Jade Scroll. Yunshan Jade Scroll, a 4th grade treasure, is made from Yunshan Jade Essence. It has a very powerful ability to exorcise evil and avoid evil. It is the natural nemesis of many different level and strange level evil spirits. It can be used as a protective magic weapon, or you can engrave exorcism runes on the Jade Scroll to attack evil spirits. A 4th grade treasure, it is worthy of being a top quality spiritual fruit. This Yunshan Jade Scroll can be used as a natural protective magic weapon, and it can also be engraved with special runes to further enhance the power of the Jade Scroll. Lu Xuan flipped through the exquisite Jade Scroll, and couldn't let it go. Chapter 236, Immortal Drunken Good. Evil spirits are known in the cultivation world for their secretive movements and sinister methods. They are more difficult to deal with than monsters of the same level. I already have a 3rd grade immaculate jade on me, but it is mainly used to detect the traces of evil spirits, and has limited killing power against them. The 2nd grade purification mantra can purify evil spirits to a certain extent, but it can only be used on those small evil spirits of different levels. Now this Yunshan Jade Scroll can cause great damage to evil spirits, which can be regarded as making up for the lack of killing power of Immaculate Jade. Lu Xuan put the Yunshan Jade Scroll in his hand into the storage bag, and continued to inspect the spiritual field. At the sword raising good, there were still 4 green and mottled goods left on the vines. Lu Xuan came to the good rack built by the second-hand flying sword, and checked them one by one. When the spiritual consciousness approached the good seemed to sense something. It was shaking gently in the breeze and instantly accelerated the shaking frequency. A clear sword sound came from it. Lu Xuan even sensed that there was a powerful and sharp sword intent pointing directly at him, as if it would penetrate his body at any time. Well, this one is ripe. The progress bar below the 4 goods was at least half full. Among them, the one at the bottom, perhaps nourished by more sword energy, had its progress bar completely full. A black sword light flashed, and the vine hanging the good was instantly cut off by the Zunli sword light, and the sword raising good fell into Lu Xuan's hands. Good quality, not bad. The 3rd grade spiritual plant has always been nourished by the 1st grade second-hand flying sword. In addition, after going to the Blessed Land for a period of time, Lu Xuan was already satisfied to get a good quality sword raising good. He put the good away, and focused on the white light ball hanging on the vine. The white light ball flickered slightly, and when it was gently touched, it turned into countless invisible fine sword energy. When it poured into Lu Xuan's body, his skin felt a slight tingling sensation. Then, a thought flashed through his mind. Harvest a 3rd grade sword raising good, and obtain the 4th grade talisman's Iohei sword talisman. The thought disappeared, and a talisman that was neither gold nor jade appeared in Lu Xuan's hand. The talisman was like a small sword tip, with a surging sea wave like sword intent inside. Roaring Sea Sword Talisman, a 4th grade talisman. When the talisman is activated, it can instantly shoot out endless sword intent like raging waves. A full strength attack can severely injure, or even kill a cultivator in the middle or late stage of foundation building. The amount of sword energy activated can be controlled by oneself, and the sword energy cannot be replenished. Another 4th grade Roaring Sea Sword Talisman. Lu Xuan took out the one he had obtained before from the storage bag when he was in Langayu Blessed Land. In order to stop the 3 fellow disciples who were trying to snatch the phoenix tree from him, Lu Xuan used half of the sword intent in the sword talisman at once. Compared with the one he just got, it can be clearly felt that the sea wave sword intent in the talisman is much thinner. However, he knew that, even if there was only half of the sword intent, it was his most powerful means of attack at present. Therefore, he was very satisfied with the repeated rewards from the light group. He continued to inspect the spiritual field. The other spiritual plants in the spiritual field grew a lot. The 2nd grade ice radish fruit and flaming fruit have entered the mature stage and have borne fruit. The ice radish fruit tree is surrounded by chill, and the azure spiritual fruits are hanging down, and you can feel the amazing coolness in it. The flaming fruit is the opposite. The spiritual fruit is fiery red, and from a distance, it looks like a cluster of burning flames. One ice and one fire, responding to each other from a distance. Lu Xuan has already thought of the double experience when tasting them together. In the spiritual field, other spiritual plants are growing very well. The 2nd grade colorful grass is like a fairy's feathered clothes, dancing gracefully and isolated from the world. The 2nd grade sun fragrant fruit on the top of the mountain faces the scorching sun, and the golden flowers that bloom chase the track of the scorching sun. The 3rd grade Yulin grass stays honestly in the wooden shed, built by Lu Xuan. When night falls, it quietly absorbs the silver white moonlight and turns into pure spiritual liquid. The 4th grade black insect vine and earth fire heart lotus have not grown so obviously. After observation, it is only clear that the growth momentum is not bad. After Lu Xuan made a complete inspection, he returned to the house. It is precious to obtain rare spiritual seeds in the blessed land, but he knows in his heart that it is something that can only be encountered by chance, while spiritual plants are within his control. Knowing the needs and status of spiritual plants at any time, coupled with the generous rewards from the light group, made farming the foundation of his life. For more than a month, he basically stayed on the mountain, cultivating many spiritual plants and raising spiritual beasts. In his spare time, he would practice the Great 5-element gong and other exercises, and occasionally go out to meet with nearby fellow disciples or Liusu. Perhaps because it was too low-key. After Langayu Blessed Land offended the 3 handsome young men, the expected trouble did not come, and the days were calm and peaceful. Lu Xuan was happy to see this, farming at his own pace, practicing the spiritual field paved with Wulingrang. The earth-type spiritual power was rich and pure. Lu Xuan's spiritual power surged, and after performing the earth-inducing technique, cracks quietly emerged. He took out dozens of slender spiritual seeds with a light blue light from the storage bag, and put them into the cracks of the spiritual soil one by one. It was a water firefly grass spirit seed that had been stored for a while. He didn't have any high-grade spirit seeds at the moment, and it would be a waste to leave the Wuling soil spiritual field empty. In addition, the water firefly grass was related to his own cultivation, so although it was only 2nd grade, Lu Xuan planted all of them in the Wuling soil spiritual field. In the end, more than 80 water firefly grass spirit seeds occupied an entire spiritual field. Over the spiritual field, a drizzle fell, seeping into the spiritual soil, nourishing the light blue slender spirit seeds. After all the water firefly grass spirit seeds were planted, Lu Xuan took a look at the 4 soul enriching plants in another spiritual field. After he used his spiritual consciousness to warm and communicate with them day and night, more than a month later, The soul-enriching pine spirit seeds had taken root and sprouted. At this moment, the soul-enriching pine looked like a small mushroom, with pine leaves so tender that water could almost be squeezed out. Sensing Lu Xuan approaching, the small tree body swayed gently, causing waves of pine waves that were barely visible. The soul-enriching pine seedlings were full of spirituality, showing a lively meaning, conveying a very intimate thought to Lu Xuan. As expected of a 4th grade spiritual plant, it seems to have a certain amount of intelligence. Lu Xuan sighed, using his spiritual consciousness to nourish and cultivate 4 spiritual pine seedlings for a period of time, and then continue to inspect the spiritual field. Another sword-raising gourd has matured, and it's of top quality. When he came near the sword-raising gourd, Lu Xuan keenly noticed that a green gourd under the vine had fully matured. He carefully picked it up, and then a thought flashed through his mind. Sword-raising gourd, 3rd grade spiritual plant. A white ball of light quietly emerged at the place where the gourd was picked, flickering slightly, attracting Lu Xuan to pick it up. With a light touch, the ball of light suddenly cracked, condensed into a river of light, and poured into Lu Xuan's body. Or thought flashed through his mind. Harvest a 3rd grade sword-raising gourd, and obtain the 4th grade treasure, the drunken immortal gourd. A dark yellow gourd suddenly appeared in Lu Xuan's hand. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237 Brother, you know me. The dark yellow gourd is much larger than the nutrient gourd, with many faint runes on the surface, and a dark yellow rope tied between the waist and the gourd mouth. When a cork on the gourd mouth was removed, a strong aroma of wine spread out and lingered for a long time. Lu Xuan's mind was focused on the dark yellow gourd, and he instantly learned detailed information about it. The drunken immortal gourd, a 4th grade treasure, has a very large capacity. When it is refined, it is mixed with wineworm powder to purify the quality of the spiritual spring and change the taste of the spiritual spring. According to the characteristics, spirituality, and type of spiritual fruit of the spiritual spring put into the drunken immortal gourd, spiritual wine can be automatically brewed. When spiritual milk and spiritual liquid treasures are put into the gourd, their quality and age can be improved. Automatic wine gourd. Lu Xuan couldn't help but sigh. Although the dark yellow gourd in front of him has little attack power and can only improve the quality of the spiritual spring and brew spiritual wine, it is more useful to Lu Xuan. He can use it to purify spiritual springs, cultivate spiritual plants, add spiritual fruits, brew fruit wine, and improve the quality of life. Exploring secret realms and fighting with others is only temporary. He has been in the Xianjian sect for several years and only had the experience of fighting with others until he entered the Langai blessed land not long ago. For him, the drunken immortal gourd purifies spiritual springs, brews fruit wine, and improves spiritual liquid, which is a long-term thing. The frequency of use is much higher than that of offensive magic weapons. His figure turned into a floating light, and in a flash he came to the small lake on the mountain. The spiritual energy on the lake's surface was curling, like a faint white smoke. The small lake is located in the inner sect of the Xianjian sect. The lake water is nourished by the rich and pure spiritual energy, and it can barely be called a spiritual spring. Lu Xuan squatted on the edge of the small lake, and his spiritual power controlled a stream of water to flow into the drunken immortal gourd. The drunken immortal gourd looks small on the outside, but the actual space is extremely wide. The lake water is continuously poured in, and thousands of pounds are only half filled. Lu Xuan probed into the lake with his spiritual consciousness, and felt that the lake water was moving without wind, and the waves were rippling. There was something invisible inside that was constantly washing. Half a day later, Lu Xuan poured out some, and put it in a jade bowl. After sweeping it with his spiritual consciousness, he found that both the purity and the concentration of spiritual power of the spiritual spring were better than before, but perhaps because it was left for too short a time, the change was not very obvious. After tasting it, the spiritual spring became extremely sweet, refreshing. Not bad. I don't have to worry about the problem of spiritual brewing in the future. I can brew it automatically by putting in spiritual fruits and spiritual springs. Lu Xuan casually hung the Xuan gourd on one side of his waist and put it next to the Yangtze sword sheath. The scabbard was simple and mottled, and the gourd was dark yellow and deep. The combination of a sword and a gourd was quite unruly. Lu Xuan immediately became interested and placed the simple scabbard across his chest and slowly pulled out the flying sword from it. A flying sword shaped like lightning gradually appeared. The curved blade made the scabbard tremble constantly, as if it could not bear the strange blade scratching the inner wall of the scabbard. From time to time, lightning arcs surged from the scabbard, making the scabbard react strongly. Spoiling the fun, Lu Xuan looked at the unruly scabbard in his hand and suddenly lost interest. He thrust the purple lightning sword into the scabbard fiercely. The lightning stimulated from the crack of the scabbard all the way to the deepest part. The scabbard shook violently, as if it wanted to break free from Lu Xuan's hand. After getting this 4th grade drunken fairy gourd, Lu Xuan was very satisfied and continued to inspect various parts of the spiritual field. 2 two-headed armadillos drilled out of the soil, and the 4 heads stared at Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan had no choice but to take out 4 spiritual minerals from the storage bag and stuff one into each head. For a while, the sound of clicking was endless. Over the past month, the two-headed armadillo monster has grown a lot, and there are already many small gray scales on its body. Because it has grown not long ago, it feels slightly soft to the touch. These 2 two-headed armadillo cubs are better at digging holes than he imagined. They dug holes all the way from the rock wall to the bottom of the Wuling soil, just to enjoy the spiritual energy of the Wuling soil. Lu Xuan had to order them not to modify the mountain at will, so as to avoid the underground passages dug by them. The two-headed armadillo cubs were full and immediately hid underground. After a while, a small vine covered with grey tentacles climbed over silently and went up along Lu Xuan's arm. Lu Xuan saw that it was covered with tentacles and slapped it down with a slap. The demon ghost vine seemed to be drunk, crawling crookedly. This little guy has gone to the fairy peach again. He probably has developed tolerance to the aphrodisiac effect of the fairy peach's miasma. Lu Xuan looked at the demon ghost vine covered with tiny tentacles, sighing and sending out a hazy spiritual light. Under the purification mantra, the demon ghost vine instantly returned to normal. The tiny tentacles retracted and crawled into Lu Xuan's sleeve intimately. "Junior brother Lu, are you there?" Lu Xuan was teasing the spirit beast when suddenly, a strange voice came from the foot of the mountain. "Yes." Lu Xuan responded and opened the flowing light talisman array. A middle-aged man with a beard was standing outside the talisman array, looking at Lu Xuan with a smile. "I wonder who you are, senior brother. My surname is Fan, and my given name is Zhu. I'm several dozen years older than you, junior brother Lu. You can just call me senior brother Fan," the bearded man said cheerfully. "So it's senior brother Fan. I've heard a lot about you. Please come into my cave for a chat," Lu Xuan invited with a smile. The two followed a stone path and came to Lu Xuan's cave halfway up the mountain. It's true that seeing is worse than hearing. I've heard from other brothers in the sect that junior brother Lu is an expert in spiritual plants. Today, I see that his reputation is well deserved. Although the mountain peaks are covered by mist mazes, most of the spiritual plants, especially the high-grade spiritual plants, are hidden in the thick white mist, but a small part can still be seen, and the rich vitality can be felt. Senior brother, you are too kind. They are just some common flowers and plants, not worth mentioning." Lu Xuan served the spiritual fruit and spiritual tea, and said in a calm tone, "By the way, I wonder why senior brother came to my cave." He got straight to the point and asked directly, "I heard that junior brother Lu has been asking other fellow disciples about how to find 3rd grade or higher strange fires. Is this true?" "Indeed." Lu Xuan nodded gently. After getting the 6th grade phoenix tree, Lu Xuan would naturally not keep it without cultivating it. In order to get the light ball reward of the 6th grade ancient spiritual plant as soon as possible, he would ask other fellow disciples if they had the corresponding treasures or the source of strange fire when they met recently. "I know there is a secret realm with 3rd grade silver flame fire, which is also extremely rare among the 3rd grade strange fires. But a fellow disciple who had made an appointment with us was suddenly injured. After hearing that junior brother Lu was collecting strange fires, he came here as soon as possible and wanted to invite junior brother to join us to explore that secret realm together." The bearded man talked freely, with a bit of bewitching in his tone. "I'm sorry, senior brother fan. I may not be able to go. Senior brother, you know me. After entering the sect, I have been obsessed with spiritual plants and spiritual beasts. As a result, I have neglected my cultivation, am not good at fighting, and don't have any decent magic weapons in my hands." Lu Xuan sighed. His expression was sincere, and his tone was sincere. Hearing Lu Xuan's words, the bearded man's mouth twitched imperceptibly. The person behind him once told him that Lu Xuan's body was strong, and he had many magic weapons in his hands. With just one talisman, he repelled 2 mid-stage foundation building masters, and 1 early-stage foundation building master at the same time. If he hadn't known this fact, he would probably have been deceived by Lu Xuan's expression and tone, and completely believed that he was just an ordinary spiritual plant master with ordinary qualifications and cultivation. Chapter 238, Sleepy Pillow. Lu Xuan was keenly aware of the subtle changes in the bearded monk's expression, and he suddenly became alert. As the saying goes, one does not visit a temple for no reason. This fellow disciple may have really heard of Lu Xuan's needs, and came to invite him sincerely, but it is also possible that the 3 people in the Blessed Land set a trap. After all, they knew that he had a phoenix tree on him, so they understood his urgent need for the 3rd grade strange fire, and set a trap to lure him in so as to take back the ancient phoenix tree. Thinking of this, he became more determined in his inner thoughts, and kept shaking his head to refuse the bearded monk's eloquence. "Since junior brother Lu is determined not to go, I will not force you." In the end, seeing that Lu Xuan was not moved, the bearded monk said helplessly, "Thank you for your kindness, but I have indeed spent too much time on spiritual plants, and neglected my practice. I'm powerless, so as not to drag you down." Lu Xuan changed the subject. "However, if senior brother Fan obtains the 3rd grade strange fire from the secret realm, he can transfer it to me, and I will pay a slightly higher price than usual," he said with a smile, and did not forget to advertise before leaving. "Okay, I will definitely keep an eye out for you, junior brother Lu." The bearded monk was speechless for a moment, and did not stay for long, saying goodbye and leaving. Lu Xuan just mentioned it casually, and did not put all his hopes of obtaining the 3rd grade strange fire on senior brother Fan, who came to invite him for no reason. He opened the formation, and came to the foot of the mountain. He stimulated a small magic weapon sent by the beast taming hole with his spiritual power, and soon, a tall spiritual crane flew from a distance. The spiritual crane saw Lu Xuan from afar and immediately let out a joyful cry. The speed instantly increased a few points, and landed in front of Lu Xuan in 2 or 3 breaths. The entire spiritual crane tribe has always remembered Lu Xuan's figure. Even after a long time, he still has the qualification to ride the spiritual crane for free. Lu Xuan touched the white feathers on the head of the spiritual crane, took out a red spiritual fruit, and stuffed it into the mouth of the spiritual crane. Then, he jumped onto the back of the crane. General Affairs Hall. The General Affairs Hall has a wide hall. At any time, many outer disciples gather here to issue and receive various types of tasks. "My fellow Taoist, I want to assign a task." Lu Xuan turned into the inner hall of the General Affairs Hall, and said to a middle-aged steward, "Hello, uncle." The steward was at the 9th level of key training. He looked up at Lu Xuan, and saw the special robes for inner disciples on him. A trace of panic flashed in his eyes, and he bowed his head and said respectfully. He was surprised at the youth and immaturity of Lu Xuan's face. "I wonder what task uncle wants to assign." He quickly adjusted himself, and asked Lu Xuan with a warm smile on his face. "The task is to collect 3 grade and above strange fires. The reward is at least 100 sword seals, depending on the grade and quantity of the flames. 3 grade and above strange fires. Please forgive me for being frank, but the requirements of this task are a bit high, and it may be difficult for an outer disciple to complete it." "Oh, what do you mean?" "First of all, 3 grade strange fires are not as common as 3 grade monsters. The conditions for the breeding of such natural treasures are complex and extremely difficult to find. Secondly, the main people who accept the task are outer disciples. The possibility of them getting 3 grade strange fires in the key training stage is very small. As for inner disciples, they usually don't have to worry about spirit stones and sword seals, so there are very few inner disciples who come to the General Affairs Hall to accept tasks. The middle-aged steward explained to Lu Xuan in detail. Lu Xuan nodded, hesitated, and said, "Let's put this task on hold for now. Maybe I will meet a fellow disciple who can complete it. Anyway, it only costs 3 spirit stones to hang it on the light curtain for a period of time." So Lu Xuan finally chose to issue this task. He came out of the inner hall and glanced at the light curtain of the main hall. When he passed by, there was no change in the types of tasks on the light curtain. They were mainly about exploring secret realms, tracking and killing evil spirits, and occasionally about refining equipment and alchemy. There were very few tasks related to spiritual plants and spiritual beasts. Occasionally, one appeared, and only a few outer disciples were interested. He saw this familiar scene, and the corners of his mouth could not help but rise, recalling his previous experience of sweeping through various spiritual plant and spiritual beast tasks on the light curtain. It was also from this that he obtained a large number of spiritual seeds, cultivation resources, met many powerful cultivators, and laid the foundation for breaking through to the foundation building realm. It's a pity that I have become an inner disciple now, and it's not good to compete with those outer disciples for tasks, otherwise they will have to remember the fear of being dominated by spiritual plants and spiritual beasts. With emotion, he left the General Affairs Hall silently. In the sky, the wind was blowing fiercely. Lu Xuan sat cross-legged on the back of the spiritual crane, thinking about how to obtain the 3rd grade strange fire. It's really a bit slim to post tasks. Maybe I can get the strange fire by exchanging treasures. As for going out in person to explore the secret realm to get it, I will never explore the secret realm in this life, and I can't fight with people. I can only plant spiritual plants to maintain the appearance of cultivation. After making a decision, Lu Xuan returned to the cave and paid attention to the recent treasure exchange meeting among the inner disciples. Time passed quickly, and half a month passed in a blink of an eye. As usual, he inspected the spiritual field and checked the growth status of each spiritual plant. Under careful cultivation, all the spiritual plants grew very well. When he came to the outside of the ground fire branch, he walked to the 2nd grade flaming fruit tree. Among the light red leaves, more than a dozen flaming fruits were looming, half hidden. Looking from below, it was like a cluster of burning flames, emitting an amazing fire spirit aura. It's finally ripe. Lu Xuan checked them one by one, and found that the progress bar under one of the flaming fruits was completely full. A thin layer of flame emerged on his palm, and his body floated up, carefully picking up the flaming fruit. Superior quality, not bad. The growth environment of the inner sect's spiritual plants is far better than that of the outer sect. It is easy to get high quality spiritual fruits and plants by planting 2nd grade spiritual plants. The flaming fruit felt soft to the touch. With a gentle pinch, the shape of the fruit flesh changed immediately. Holding it in the hand, it was like a ball of flowing flame. Lu Xuan concentrated his mind and quickly learned the detailed information of the spiritual fruit. The flaming fruit is a 2nd grade spiritual fruit. It contains rich fire spiritual power and tastes excellent. After eating, it can enhance the spiritual power of the cultivator's body, and can also be used as a material for refining certain spiritual wines and brews. He digested the information that appeared in his mind, reached out and gently touched the white light ball that appeared at the location of the flaming fruit. The light ball turned into countless tiny light spots and instantly poured into Lu Xuan's body. Harvest the 2nd grade flaming fruit, and obtain the 3rd grade strange fire red lotus flame. A pillow was sent to me just when I was sleepy. Lu Xuan was full of surprises and carefully looked at the strange flame that appeared in his hand. The flame has distinct layers, like a quietly burning lotus. The flame of the outermost lotus petals is bright yellow, gradually turning into fiery red as it goes deeper, occupying most of the lotus flame area, wrapping up the pure white flame in the center layer by layer. Chapter 239 Red Lotus Flame Explosion Flame Pearl. Focusing on the lotus flame, information about it suddenly emerged. Red lotus flame, a 3rd grade strange fire, the accompanying flame of Kyanayang red lotus, can be used to refine elixirs, and can slightly improve the quality and success rate of elixirs. The accompanying flame of Kyanayang red lotus? Lu Xuan murmured to himself. The accompanying plant is already a 3rd grade strange fire. I don't know what grade of spiritual plant the Kyanayang red lotus is. Hearing the name of this spiritual plant, he felt a little itchy and just thought about whether he could have a chance to plant it and try it. The light group is not important. The main thing is to challenge the difficulty of high-grade spiritual plants. Lu Xuan placed the red lotus flame in a special jade vessel and continued to inspect the spiritual fruit on the flame fruit spiritual plant. Hey, I found another one. Lu Xuan chuckled, looking at the flame-shaped spiritual fruit hidden among the light red leaves. After concentrating his mind, the faint progress bar under the spirit fruit was completely full. He picked it carefully. Good quality, pretty good. Or thought flashed through his mind. Flame fruit, 2nd grade spiritual fruit. After picking the spiritual fruit, the highlight is naturally the white light group that appears in its original position. The white light group shines brightly against the light red leaves, which is eye-catching. Show your face, little baby. Lu Xuan raised his eyebrows and reached out to gently touch the surface of the light group. The light group burst into pieces and turned into countless light points that dispersed. Immediately, they were attracted by Lu Xuan's body and poured into his body one after another like a rainbow penetrating the sun. Harvest a 2nd grade flame fruit and a 3rd grade treasure, the explosive flame bead. A red stone bead appeared in the palm of Lu Xuan's hand. The stone bead was the size of an egg. You could see the fiery red magma rising and surging inside. It seemed like a volcano about to erupt, containing extremely terrifying power. Lu Xuan concentrated his mind, and the information about Shizu instantly appeared in his mind. The explosive flame bead is a 3rd grade treasure. It contains a high-level fire spell, the explosive flame technique. When activated, it can erupt into a scorching flame attack over a wide area, which is extremely lethal. Wide range attack technique. Explosion is art. Lu Xuan carefully put the 3rd grade explosive flame bead into the storage bag, for fear of accidentally detonating the bomb. It won't matter if it hits me, but I'm afraid it will hit so many flowers and plants on the mountain. He circled around the 10 flame fruit spiritual plants. After finding no other fully mature spiritual fruits, he inspected other spiritual plants on the mountain peak. In the Wuling soil field, more than 80 water fireflies planted have taken root and sprouted. The light blue leaves are embellished with white light, making it look like a dream. The breeze blows, and the delicate leaves sway gently, showing off their vitality. Lu Xuan's spiritual power surged, and he performed a series of just right spiritual rain techniques, allowing every water firefly to be fully nourished. As expected of this special spiritual soil, the growth rate of spiritual plants is much faster than usual. Lu Xuan secretly sighed after comparing the previous growth trend of water fireweed. In another Wuling soil field, 4 youngling pines had already noticed Lu Xuan's approach, and the gentle sound of pine waves reached Lu Xuan's ears, expressing their intimacy. After Lu Xuan used his spiritual consciousness to nourish and communicate with him day and night, the 4th grade youngling pine became full of spirituality, like an immobile child. Once Lu Xuan got close, he would feel endless joy. A light grey vine sneakily slipped out of Lu Xuan's sleeves and hid behind a youngling pine in the corner. Sometimes it stood tall, sometimes it lay next to the small pine tree, as if it was measuring how to eat. Lu Xuan glanced over, and the grey vines of the demon vine saplings trembled, and he turned back in 3 steps, and came to Lu Xuan. It leaves a trail of slime wherever it passes. Lu Xuan collected the evil spirit vine seedlings, came to the entrance of the underground fire tributary rock cave, and jumped into it. In the hot magma, the 4th grade earth fire heart lotus floats and sinks, allowing it to be continuously washed by the fiery red magma. On the stone wall above, there was a sunken cave entrance, and a blackened poinciana tree lay quietly in it. There are many dark golden cracks on the surface of the burnt wood, which extend all the way to the center, forming a pair of phoenix shadows. The wings of the shadows have dark golden lines, which are lifelike, as if they will fly out of the burnt wood at any time. I've been hungry for a month or 2. I'm here today to make you full. The fire spirit aura from the earth fire tributary can only barely keep the poinciana tree alive. If it really wants to promote growth, it must be cultivated with 3rd grade and above exotic fire. He took out a jade box sealed with runes from his storage bag and released the red lotus flame inside. The moment he came out, the dark golden cracks on the charred wood instantly lit up, and a strong suction force came, attracting the red lotus flame to come closer. Lu Xuan let go of his hand, and the red lotus flame suddenly flew and spun to the phoenix tree. The layers of petals burned and turned into wisps of tiny flames, striking all around the poinciana tree. The firelight radiated, then merged into the dark golden cracks, and continued to flow to the middle of the charred wood. Keeping the phoenix shadow filled, a red lotus grew from the center of the scorched wood, rapidly growing in size, and its petals bloomed quietly. A pair of thumb-sized phoenix shadows remained in the petals, making clear chirping sounds from time to time, and their voices were filled with strong joy. Burned wood gives birth to fire lotus. Finally I can nurture you for a while, Lu Xuan said with emotion as he looked at the pair of small and exquisite phoenix shadows. When the flame fruit matured, he obtained the 3rd grade strange fire red lotus flame and the 3rd grade treasure explosive flame bead. One solved his urgent need, and the other could greatly supplement his attack method. Lu Xuan couldn't help but feel very good when he thought that there were still many flame fruits waiting for him to pick. He took out a large amount of monster meat from the house, divided the obtained flame fruits and jade scale fruits evenly, and paired them with the Bago spirit pulp prepared previously. The aroma of meat, fruit, and the fragrance of spiritual liquid spreads. A light green figure flew by quickly, and the young falcon stopped on its round belly, looking longingly at the many foods in the yard. The young dragon followed closely behind, with its round belly next to the wind falcon, focusing most of its attention on the flame fruit that came from the same source. Ouch. The cloud-stepping lynx growled lowly, pretending not to care, and kept circling around the courtyard wall. 4 heads emerged from an open space one after another, looking at the large amounts of food without blinking. On the demonic vine seedlings, the newly born tentacle-like vines were beating constantly, showing great excitement. In the depths of its memory, eating a little spiritual plant body and monster meat is considered good luck, and being hungry for a long time is the norm. For the white ghost vine tribe who are semi-imprisoned in the blessed land medicine garden, eating some is already very good, so they don't care about taste or preference. And now, the sizzling, fragrant monster meat barbecue, the top quality spiritual fruits, the spiritual pulp made from a variety of materials. How could there be such a battle before? For a moment, the demonic vine seedlings were a little dazed, and the busy figure of Lu Xuan on the side kept getting taller. Let's eat. As soon as these words fell, it reached its peak. Chapter 240, Fen Yu and Dan. Following Lu Xuan's order, the evenly divided barbecue, spiritual fruits, and spiritual juices fell in front of the children one by one. The children fell in love with the food, feasting on it, and making various roars and calls from time to time, with strong joy and happiness in their voices. In addition to their own delicious characteristics, these spiritual fruits and spiritual juices can also more or less enhance the physical fitness of the children. Especially the young dragon. After taking a small piece of the flaming fruit, a red flame suddenly rose all over its body, burning quietly for a long time before dissipating. After the spiritual power flame disappeared, the scales on the young dragon's body suddenly became bright and shiny, giving people a refreshing feeling. After finishing his work, Lu Xuan lay on a rattan chair, and his spiritual power turned into an invisible palm, taking out a piece of cut flaming fruit from the fruit plate next to him. As soon as it was put into his mouth, the soft fruit flesh turned into a ball of flame, bursting in his mouth, and the strong and hot fruit fragrance spread. A warmth went all the way down from his mouth, flowing through his limbs and bones, warming Lu Xuan's whole body. After the flame fruit was completely digested, Lu Xuan opened his mouth and exhaled a breath of hot air. After the spiritual fruit whetted his appetite, he began to enjoy the roasted monster meat. After coming to this world for so long, he has made rapid progress in cooking. He does not simply absorb the spiritual power contained in the monster meat, but pays more attention to the development of taste. During the roasting process, there are fire magic that can be adjusted freely, plus the various seasonings he has collected with great effort. The effect is excellent. The golden oil dripping fragrance is overflowing. The monster meat is crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, and when it is put into the mouth, the fresh, crispy, spicy and other flavors are churning in the mouth. Good meat naturally needs good wine. The dark yellow drunken fairy good on the waist broke free from its restraints and flew to the top of Lu Xuan's head, and a stream of colorful spiritual liquid poured into Lu Xuan's mouth. It was the 100 fruit spiritual juice specially brewed in the drunken fairy gourd. After such a short time, the taste of the 100 fruit spiritual juice became more vivid and rich, and one after another spiritual fruit flavor appeared in turn, making Lu Xuan intoxicated. "Hey, kid, you can't drink." In his drunken eyes, he sensed a grey vine of the demon ghost vine sneaking over, trying to take the drunken fairy good in the low air. Lu Xuan slapped it away and scolded. The night was as cool as water, and a meteor passed by overhead. I wonder if it was the Zaotian's Dao sword formation in operation. Lu Xuan lay on the rattan chair for a long time, feeling very comfortable. He looked at the many spiritual plants bathed in the moonlight and recalled his experience after being promoted to an inner disciple, improved the spirit firefly grass, solved the problems of the yin-yang cunfish and the Kingsuan deer, and entered the Langai blessed land to obtain many opportunities. After returning from the blessed land, there were several more high-grade spiritual plants in the spiritual field. At present, the spiritual plants of the 4th grade and above include the 4th grade black insect vine, the earth fire heart lotus and the soul enriching pine, the 5th grade demon ghost vine, and the ancient strange tree phoenix tree that was snatched at the cost of making enemies. In the courtyard of Jianmen Town, there are also the 4th grade Beitang weird wood and the 5th grade holy infant fruit. The largest number of spiritual plants were 2nd grade, with more than 80 water fireflies, as well as many flaming fruits, ice radish fruits, swordgrass, annual classified yunhui, and experimental varieties of colorful grass and day fragrant fruits. For 3rd grade spiritual plants, there were jade scale fruits and sword raising goods that were in the mature stage, yulin grass, jiao vines, and fairy peaches that were in the growth stage, as well as the wind and thunder sword grass that was transformed from the 2nd grade sword grass. Lu Xuan was very satisfied to be able to plant so many rare and high grade spiritual plants with the cultivation of the early stage of foundation building. Not to mention the rich light group rewards hidden behind these spiritual plants. Such a huge fortune is not something that can be easily obtained by exploring secret realms and killing people to rob treasures. What good fortune is there to seek? What treasures to rob? It is better to plant a few acres of land in peace and stability. Lu Xuan thought with a smile. 3 days passed in a blink of an eye. Lu Xuan had been staying on the mountain for the past few days without leaving, cultivating spiritual plants, raising and teasing spiritual beasts, and practicing skills and magic. When he was in the mood, his life was simple and fulfilling. Several spiritual plants on the mountain peaks have entered the mature stage. There are still a few unripe spiritual fruits hanging on the jade scale fruit plant, and 3 sword raising goods are left on the good vine, fully absorbing the sword spirit of the second-hand flying sword. However, 3 more flaming fruits were found to be fully mature. 10 flaming fruit plants have a total of 80 to 90 spiritual fruits, so the possibility of mature spiritual fruits is even greater. The 3 flaming fruits are like clusters of blazing flames, bright red, and particularly conspicuous among the pale red leaves. Lu Xuan's palm was covered with a layer of fire spirit aura, and he carefully picked the 3 spiritual fruits. 3 thoughts flashed through his mind. All are of good quality. Okay. Lu Xuan scanned them and confirmed the quality of the spiritual fruits, then focused his attention on the 3 white light balls that appeared. He gently touched the nearest light ball. With a flash of thought, a red stone bead appeared in his palm. Another 3rd grade explosive flame bead. The moment the stone bead appeared, Lu Xuan recognized it. He carefully put away the explosive flame pearl and focused his attention on the 2nd white light ball. The light ball turned into countless tiny light spots and poured into his body. It was still a 3rd grade explosive flame pearl. 3 3rd grade explosive flame pearls. If they are activated together, the explosive power is unimaginable. Lu Xuan sighed secretly. He came to the last white light ball. He reached out and gently touched the surface of the light ball. A cool breeze came, and the light ball turned into countless tiny light spots and instantly poured into his body. Harvest the 2nd grade fiery fruit, and obtain a 3rd grade pill, the Finyuan pill. As soon as the thought flashed through his mind, a red pill appeared in his hand. The pill was the size of a pigeon egg, with several different depths of din when on the surface, emitting a strong fire spirit, and faintly exuding a sense of irritability. Lu Xuan's mind was focused on the pill, and he instantly learned detailed information about the pill. Feng Yuandan, a 3rd grade elixir, can instantly burn the essence in the body after taking it, thereby greatly improving the cultivator's strength, speed, self-healing ability, etc. The effect depends on the cultivator's cultivation level, and it takes between half an hour and 2 hours. After the effect of the elixir wears off, the cultivator will enter a period of weakness, and can use elixirs and spiritual medicines to speed up recovery. It burns the essence in the body instantly, no wonder it is named the Feng Yuandan. However, it can have a good effect in certain specific situations. It can greatly improve combat power in a short period of time, and after overdrawing, it will enter a certain period of weakness. If used well, it can achieve very good results. Lu Xuan took out a small white jade bottle from the storage bag, uncorked it, and put the fiery red Feng Yuandan into it. It's another ordinary day, harvesting spiritual plants. 2 3rd grade explosive flame pearls and a 3rd grade Feng Yuandan are of great use to Lu Xuan, who is currently in the early stage of foundation building. He stretched lazily, looking at the many flame-like spiritual fruits among the 10 flame fruit spiritual plants, and a feeling of joy of a good harvest arose in his heart. Chapter 241, Flame Art from Beginner to Master. Junior brother Lu, are you here? Just when Lu Xuan was feeling the joy of the harvest, a gentle voice came from outside the mountain talisman array. Senior brother Shen, I'm here. Lu Xuan instantly heard that the owner of the voice was Shen Yi, the master of the Sinnoh Hall, and one of the top leaders of the Sword Hall. He quickly opened the talisman array, and went out to greet him. At the foot of the mountain, a monk who was as gentle as jade, and carrying a black sword case was looking at him with a smile. Junior brother Lu, I haven't seen you for a long time. How have you been? I'm thinking of you. Senior brother. Everything is fine. Lu Xuan welcomed Shen Yi into the small courtyard, took out the flame fruit, jade scale fruit and other spiritual fruits, and poured a full glass of it. Bigo spirit pulp. Did you personally cultivate this flame fruit, junior brother? It tastes much better than what I had before, and the quality should be good. Shen Yi closed his eyes and felt the changes in the flame fruit in his body and praised it aloud. Yes, I have nothing to do on weekdays, so I planted some spiritual fruits and used them to entertain guests when they matured. Lu Xuan said with a smile. By the way, junior brother Lu, how are the 10 sword grass spiritual seeds obtained from the sword hall last time growing? Shen Yi suddenly asked. All 10 sword grass spiritual seeds are alive. I tried to guide them to mutate during the planting process, but I haven't seen the results yet. Lu Xuan said half truthfully. Although he had successfully cultivated the 3rd grade mutated wind and thunder sword grass under the sheath of the Yangtze sword, the future of the sword grass was still very uncertain, so he was not in a hurry to tell the truth, and hid part of the content. All survived? Are you trying to induce them to mutate? Shen Yi, who was as gentle as jade, made a surprised sound. Lu Xuan's achievements in spiritual cultivation were beyond his expectation, and a certain idea in his heart became stronger because of this. When the sword grass matures, junior brother Lu will come to the sword hall again, and you will definitely be assigned some more important tasks. As for my coming here this time, I have other things to do. Junior brother, when he was an outer disciple, you should know that the sect often has classes to teach the Dharma, which are usually held by inner disciples. If you are lucky, you can meet Master Jiden. Lu Xuan nodded. When he was practicing in the outer sect, he often skipped classes. I've been to it seriously a few times, but I've also heard Bailey Giant King talk about it often. Every once in a while, there will be advanced inner sect disciples who will give lectures on the basics of the exercises and practice experiences, and there will also be many masters of alchemy and weapon refining who will teach their refining experience. They are very popular among those who practice Qi, and are often overcrowded. However, perhaps it was because Lu Xuan had always lived in seclusion, or perhaps because spiritual plants were so unpopular, he rarely heard of foundation building spiritual plant masters coming to teach how to cultivate spiritual plants. If so, at least he wouldn't skip class. It's like this. The 3 people who usually teach spiritual planting experience in the Sinan Palace happened to be injured during this period. One went out to look for opportunities, and the other was in seclusion trying to break through the middle stage of foundation building. So, I immediately thought of junior brother Lu. Although junior brother Lu has just been promoted to the inner disciples, his attainments in cultivating spiritual beasts are undoubted, so I want to invite you to the Xuan Gong Hall to teach the outer disciples relevant experiences. Shen Yi was in the late stage of foundation building and held a high position, so he had naturally heard of Lu Xuan's glorious experience in solving the obsessions of Yunyang Kun Yu and King Xuan Lu. Even though Lu Xuan was young and his promotion was short, the first thing he thought of was Lu Xuan. Senior brother Shen, I'm just a monk with a wild path. I have always been sowing seeds blindly. I'm still in the exploratory stage. How can I be qualified to teach others? Lu Xuan didn't like this kind of publicity and declined politely. 200 sword seals. One day, Shen Yi said with a smile. However, I gained some valuable experience during the exploration process, which I can exchange with the outer disciples. It doesn't matter whether the sword seal is a sword seal or not. The main thing is that I want to learn from each other's strengths and complement each other's weaknesses with my fellow disciples. Lu Xuan's expression was as usual, and his tone changed. It's extremely natural. He originally wanted to refuse directly, but Shen Yi gave too much. 200 sword seals are almost equivalent to 1 4th grade spiritual seed, and this only takes him 1 day. Then junior brother Lu will have to take a hard trip. These are 200 sword seals. With a clatter, 200 small sword-like coins fell on Lu Xuan's table. In 3 days, junior brother, please arrive at the transfer hall on time. At that time, there will be outer disciples who are interested in Ling Zhi waiting for junior brother to arrive. Shen Yi explained the details to Lu Xuan and left without making any further stops. The day before the lecture, Lu Xuan Jing sat at the table, writing and drawing on paper. In the past 2 days, he reviewed his planting experience and summed up many cultivation tips. Even if the outer disciples who come to listen to the class cannot understand Ling Zhi's immediate status, they can benefit a lot from Ling Zhi's journey by relying on the content he imparts. He briefly made an outline and filled in some details before walking out of the courtyard to observe the growth of the spiritual plants. 5 more flame fruits are ripe. Arriving under the flame fruit spirit plant, Lu Xuan looked at the hanging flame spirit fruit with the corners of his mouth raised. He carefully picked off the 5 flame fruits one by one and put them into special containers to preserve their vitality and spirituality. After placing the spirit fruit, he turned his attention to the 5 white light groups that appeared. He stretched out his hand and gently touched the surface of the light group, and 5 light groups poured into his body one after another. Along with this comes the light group reward. Harvest a 2nd grade flame fruit and a 3rd grade treasure, the explosive flame bead. Harvest a 2nd grade flame fruit and obtain the 3rd grade elixir for Neo and Dan. When it came to the 3rd white light group, the reward finally changed. Harvest a 2nd grade flame fruit and obtain the 3rd grade magic technique flame enchanting technique part 1. There is a lot of information flooding into my mind. Fire making technique part 1, a 3rd level spell that allows monks to better control fire spells and freely transform into multiple forms. Lu Xuan digested the information that appeared in his mind and instantly had a rough understanding of how to perform this technique. The circulation route of spiritual power, the method of stimulation, and the changes in the shape of flames controlled by spiritual consciousness. He calmed down, cleared his mind, and continued to reach out to touch the remaining 2 white light groups. Harvest a 2nd grade flame fruit and obtain the flame technique part 1. Right square bracket asterisk 2 in the 2 light groups. There are experience packs from the upper part of the 3rd grade technique flame technique. Absorbing 3 magic experience packs in a row allowed Lu Xuan to have a very thorough understanding of the flame making technique in a short period of time. It was as if he had practiced and released this technique hundreds of times. The art of burning flames, from beginner to mastery. It only takes a moment to reach this state. What kind of genius is this? Lu Xuan sighed secretly. The cultivation genius used the talent skill, while he used the light group skill. They were both cheats, and there was no difference. Chapter 242 Teaching. The spiritual power in Lu Xuan's body surged, and a large amount of fire spiritual power gathered in front of him. Suddenly, a huge red fireball floated in the air, and the heat wave rolled and rushed towards him. With a thought, the huge fireball instantly turned into a several-foot-long fire gun, and the gun body burned with red flames. Like an arrow from a string, it shot towards the sky at a high speed. On the way, the speed did not decrease, and the fire gun naturally turned into a fire whip. When the whip fell, the surrounding air made a crackling sound, and flames filled everywhere. Until the top, the fire whip differentiated into dozens or hundreds of small whips, which scattered in all directions, and formed a huge fire net. During the process of the fire net falling, it evolved into countless tiny flames, and finally slowly disappeared in the air. The flame art can allow me to control various forms of flames at a high level, and there are many more changes out of thin air. What I just urged was just an ordinary flame. If I sacrifice and fuse some rare and exotic fires, then the flame art can help me control it better. Lu Xuan thought secretly in his heart. In the next 2 days, in addition to cultivating spiritual plants, he spent the rest of his time preparing for the teaching in the transmission hall. What content should be taught, and various problems that may arise. In the process, he also took the opportunity to sort out his knowledge of spiritual plants and spiritual beasts. On the 3rd day, he came to the spiritual field without a hurry. He inspected the spiritual field and checked the growth status of all the spiritual plants. He performed magic arts such as the spirit rain art and the wood growth art to try to meet the subtle needs of each spiritual plant. Among the 10 fiery fruit spiritual plants, 4 mature fiery fruits were found, all of which were of good quality. From the 4 white light balls, 2 3rd-grade burning Yuan pills, a magic experience pack of flame art part 1, and finally the content of the lower part of flame art. Compared with the upper part, the lower part of the skills is more complicated and obscure, and the difficulty of practice is much greater. After practicing successfully, the flame art can be used to transform the flame into various forms of living creatures, such as fire beasts galloping, and fire birds flying, with thousands of changes, which are more spiritual than fire guns and fire whips. However, no matter how difficult the technique was, he didn't take it seriously. Anyway, there was the experience pack of techniques brought by the fiery fruit, and absorbing one was equivalent to years of hard training. As long as there were enough light balls, he could push the technique all the way to the Grandmaster level. On the mountain, the jade scale fruit that was in the mature stage and the remaining spiritual fruit on the sword raising good had not yet reached the fully mature stage. Lu Xuan was not in a hurry, and went back to the house to continue preparing for class. The next day, he got up early in the morning, inspected the spiritual field, and came to the transmission hall. Uncle Lu. In the ancient hall, a young man at the 9th level of key training bowed to him respectfully. It's still a while before the agreed time, and the fellow disciples who came to listen to the class have not arrived yet. Please rest for a while first. Okay. Lu Xuan nodded gently and followed the advice. The young man took him into an ancient and elegant room where 2 foundation building monks were already waiting. A woman in a yellow shirt, with a quiet and elegant temperament, sat quietly on a wooden chair, sipping a pot of hot tea. Not far away, a black-faced monk folded his arms across his chest and said nothing. The monk was burly, and had a faint aura of evil around him, which showed that he had rich combat experience. Hello, to senior brothers and sisters. Lu Xuan's spiritual sense secretly scanned them, and found that they were both in the middle stage of foundation building, so he greeted them. Hello, junior brother. The yellow-shirted woman put down her teacup, and said with a smile. The black-faced monk nodded at Lu Xuan, and forced a smile on his face. Senior sister Xuan, senior brother Zhang, are you all preparing to give lectures later? After chatting with the 2 for a few words, Lu Xuan got to know them a little and asked curiously. Yes, I have some experience in alchemy, and I was invited by the transmission hall to come and share it with the outer disciples. This senior brother Zhang is famous in the sect for his strong body, which is not even weaker than most 4th grade magic weapons. He should come here to teach the experience related to body refining. The yellow-shirted woman said with a smile. I wonder what aspects of the outer disciples will be taught by junior brother Lu. I don't dare to teach, just to communicate with each other. Lu Xuan quickly denied. Compared with it to senior brothers and sisters, the content I will teach is much less popular, and there may not be many outer disciples coming to listen to the class. Since I usually like to deal with various spiritual plants and spiritual beasts, this time I come here to mainly talk about how to cultivate spiritual plants and spiritual beasts and other knowledge. Spiritual plants? I see. The yellow-shirted woman was stunned at first, and then nodded. The black-faced monk's expression did not change at all. He usually practiced hard, and did not like to waste his precious practice time on those flowers and plants. But he also knew that being able to come to the transmission hall and teach many outer disciples at least showed that Lu Xuan had a very deep attainment in the way of spiritual plants. The surname is Lu, the cultivation of the early stage of foundation building, and good at spiritual plants. Could it be that it was you, junior brother Lu, who solved the problem of the guardian spirit beast King Xuan deer dying a few months ago? The yellow-shirted woman exclaimed softly, and instantly remembered something. Yes, it is me. Lu Xuan nodded and admitted. I have long heard of your name, junior brother. You were able to resolve the dying obsession of a 5th grade guardian spirit beast with your early foundation building cultivation. I really admire you. Since ancient times, alchemy and spiritual plants have been inseparable. Most spiritual plants are mainly used in alchemy. If there is a chance in the future, I can cooperate with you more. After knowing Lu Xuan's identity, the yellow-shirted woman's face became more enthusiastic, and she kept chatting with Lu Xuan. Uncle Lu, the time is up. After a moment, the ordinary young man came in and said to Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan followed him and came to a wide hall. The hall was decorated quite elegantly. There were more than 50 outer disciples sitting inside. When they saw Lu Xuan coming in, they all stood up to greet him. Hello, uncle. Lu Xuan's spiritual sense swept over and found that there were 2 familiar faces among the crowd. One was Zia Chen, who looked like an old farmer in the Sinner Hall. After learning that Lu Xuan would come to give a lecture, he rushed here as soon as possible, fearing that he would miss anything. When he was in Sinner Hall, Lu Xuan often came to exchange spiritual seeds from him. Therefore, he knew Lu Xuan's talent in spiritual planting best. In addition, he was always curious about how Lu Xuan was promoted to an inner disciple in just a few years, so he came to listen to the class without hesitation. There was another person who was a cute and lovely round-faced female cultivator. When Lu Xuan was still in the key training stage, he accepted a task from the General Affairs Hall to help her solve the problem of a 2nd grade mutant flame fruit. The moment the round-faced female cultivator saw Lu Xuan, her expression was a little unbelievable. Lu Xuan, whose cultivation level was lower than hers before, was promoted to an inner disciple in just a few years, which made her a little difficult to accept for a moment. Seeing Lu Xuan step onto the wooden platform, she came back to her senses and looked at Lu Xuan's figure with complicated eyes. Quiet, Lu Xuan said in a low voice, and the people who were whispering in the audience immediately quieted down. Today, I will teach you some methods and tips for cultivating spiritual plants. Chapter 243, Clearing Up Doubts. Before I start teaching, I want to correct a misconception of yours. Lu Xuan looked at the audience and said with a smile, everyone present here is a gifted child of heaven, and you don't really care about spiritual plants. Occasionally planting 1 or 2 plants is just a way to earn spiritual stones or obtain materials for alchemy. After planting, you rarely pay attention to it and let it die on its own. Lu Xuan talked freely, and many people nodded in agreement, indicating that it was just as he said. Indeed, as a cultivator, improving your cultivation and your own strength are always the first priority. But the importance of spiritual plants is not inferior to the cultivation skills of alchemy and refining. Many people have such a misunderstanding that spiritual plants are only used as materials for alchemy and have no other uses. In fact, spiritual plants can also be used as materials for refining, and they can be refined into flying swords and other magic tools. Lu Xuan took out a piece of copper bone bamboo from his storage bag and shook it in front of everyone. You can also refine talismans, or even use it directly as a magic weapon. He patted his waist lightly, and a green mottled gourd flew up, with the mouth of the gourd facing down. There was a clanging sound of swords, and a sharp sword energy shot out from it, turning into a sword shadow, flying and spinning around Lu Xuan. The appearance of the third grade sword cultivating good quietly changed the concepts of many fellow key practitioners present. In the process of cultivating spiritual plants, you can also improve your ability to control spiritual energy exquisitely and deepen your understanding of various magic techniques. Finally, the Xianjian sect is famous for its swords, and the importance of the sword hall is far greater than that of other halls. Among them, there is a spiritual plant called sword grass, which is the foundation of the sect. And if you want to join the sword hall and cultivate sword grass, you need to have a very deep attainment in spiritual plants. Xuan guided them step by step. The expressions of many outer disciples below gradually changed, and their views on spiritual plants changed a little. Seeing this, Xuan nodded secretly. Since he had received 200 sword seals from Shenyi, the head of Sinnoh Hall, he naturally had to teach him the knowledge about spiritual plants. The first thing to do was to correct the prejudice of most cultivators about spiritual plants. After understanding the importance of spiritual plants, I will talk about the cultivation methods of spiritual plants. The sect has rich and pure spiritual energy and fertile spiritual fields, which are very conducive to the growth of spiritual plants. As a spiritual plant master, there are only two things that can make spiritual plants grow better. First, master the basic techniques of cultivating spiritual plants, such as spiritual rain technique, wood growth technique, earth attraction technique, etc. As Xuan spoke, his mind moved, and strands of spiritual rain fell in the half-foot area in front of him. Then, the rain quickly increased, and turned into a downpour of spiritual rain, but it was still limited to the area he had designated. After years of cultivating spiritual plants, the technique he used the most was this spiritual rain technique, which had reached the master level. Whether it was the speed of casting, the range of the technique, or the strength of the technique, it was all in his mind. Seeing this, many outer disciples below exclaimed in amazement. Don't underestimate these basic techniques. After you reach a certain level of cultivation, they will be of great benefit to you. As soon as Xuan finished speaking, a golden stream of light flashed over everyone's heads, and then turned around nimbly, and returned to him. Everyone could see clearly that it was a golden sword energy. Even if it is just the Zhengjin sword technique used to kill insects, once it reaches a high level, it will be a great threat to high-level key training cultivators. There is also the earth attraction technique. After practicing it to perfection, it can easily transform the terrain of mountains and rivers. The wood growth technique can assist in the cultivation of plants in the surrounding area, and at the same time, it can promote the growth of spiritual plants at the fastest speed. A small arrow-like spiritual seed appeared in his hand, and a crack quietly appeared on the ground. The spiritual seed was placed in the crack, and a strong green light hit the spiritual seed. Soon, a vine with more than 10 small green arrows stuck shape quickly, and it was almost mature in less than half a minute. On the vine, a 3-inch small arrow suddenly shot forward and pierced deeply into the rock on the ground. This vine with green arrows is called arrow vine, a first-grade attacking spiritual plant. Xuan got the spiritual seed by chance. Due to the huge difference in grades, the light ball reward he got would be greatly reduced, so he did not try to plant it. During the ripening process of the wood growing technique, he also deliberately added a little greenwood source energy, which achieved such a good effect. Secondly, treat every spiritual plant equally. All things have spirits, and spiritual plants are no exception. The higher the grade of the spiritual plant, the stronger the spirituality. During the cultivation process, you can spend more time to feel the emotions of the spiritual plant, so as to find out the habits, preferences, etc. of the spiritual plant. In this way, it will be easier to plant spiritual plants, and there is a greater possibility of obtaining high-quality spiritual fruits. As soon as Xuan finished speaking, the demon ghost vine that had been hiding in his sleeves quietly crawled out, and several tentacled grey vines looked at the people below curiously from all angles. This is what I call a high-grade spiritual plant, which is basically the same as a demon beast. Xuan gently touched one end of the demon ghost vine and said, "A spiritual plant that can move freely. I don't know what grade it is, but it must be at least a 4th grade spiritual plant, right? Such a cute tentacles. I really want a spiritual plant like this." The crowd below looked at the demon ghost vine that was about to retract into Xuan's sleeve, and talked about it. Okay, I've said everything I need to say. Now I'll explain to you fellow disciples how to cultivate many common spiritual plants. Lu Xuan gently pressed the demon ghost vine hidden in his sleeve and said gently. He was born in a wild way. Before entering the Xianjian sect, he didn't have a general knowledge framework. He planted whatever he had, and his understanding of spiritual plants was limited to the scope of what he planted. After entering the sect, he immediately went to the Sutra Pavilion to exchange for various classics on cultivating spiritual plants, studied hard day and night, and memorized the knowledge in them. Until now, he boasted that his understanding of spiritual plants is one of the best in the sect. Even if there are rare spiritual species that have never been planted, as long as he finds an opportunity to plant them in the ground, no matter how high the grade or how rare the species is, they will be visible in front of him. This is also the biggest confidence for him to come here to teach. After teaching, it is time to answer questions. If you have any questions or encounter any problems with spiritual plants during the cultivation process, you can come to me directly. I will be in the transmission hall all day today, so you can come and ask me. If you can't accurately describe the state of the spiritual plant, you can also bring the whole spiritual plant here, and I will check it on the spot and solve it. Lu Xuan said with a smile, full of confidence in his heart. Uncle Lu, why do my spiritual plants always bloom, but not bear fruit? Uncle, there is a mutated spiritual plant in my spiritual field. Please help me check it later. Uncle, I don't have any questions. I came here to ask, can I touch the cute vine spiritual plant just now? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244, The Rotten Water Lotus. Lu Xuan answered each of the outer disciples' questions in detail. He has been cultivating spiritual plants for many years. After entering the sect, he also made up for all kinds of knowledge about spiritual plants. Therefore, he knows many types of spiritual plants like the back of his hand. When facing various problems, he either goes to the key point or unravels the problem from the root. This makes everyone present admire him and have a clearer understanding of Lu Xuan's attainments in spiritual plants. Half a day passed. Lu Xuan said goodbye to everyone, returned to the side hall, and rested for more than half an hour. When he returned to the main hall again, Lu Xuan found that there were half more monks in the audience than in the morning, and there were 3 early foundation building monks among the outer disciples, looking at Lu Xuan on the stage with expectation. In the afternoon, we will mainly talk about various difficult and complicated spiritual plant cases. If you encounter problems that are difficult to solve, you can bring them to the stage and we will study and discuss them together. Lu Xuan said in a deep voice. My fellow disciples, I won't be polite then. A young monk stood up, clasped his fists, and walked onto the stage. Uncle Master, please help me check it out. His spiritual power surged, and a talisman shot out. Then, a wide water curtain appeared in front of everyone, with a clear image on the water curtain. The talisman was a 2nd grade water mirror talisman, which could be selected and copied. After being activated, it could maintain a clear water curtain for a period of time. In some brothels in the cultivation world, this kind of water mirror talisman was very popular. At this moment, a clear image on the water curtain appeared in front of everyone. In a pool of water with black mud, there grew a flawless white lotus, with a faint black gas lingering on the lotus. This lotus is called the Rotten Water Lotus, a 2nd grade spiritual plant. Since it is at a critical stage of growth, I'm afraid that transplanting it here will have a greater impact, so I use this water mirror talisman to copy it. Recently, for some reason, a faint black gas appeared on the branches and leaves of the Rotten Water Lotus. I couldn't find the source. I finally dispersed it, and it appeared on the plant again after a day or two. This Rotten Water Lotus is of great use to me. I'm really anxious to encounter this situation suddenly. I would like to ask Uncle Lu and all my fellow disciples to help me. Thank you. The young monk said solemnly. Could it be a spiritual plant mutation? It doesn't look like it. The black gas is only on the outer layer of the Rotten Water Lotus. It shouldn't be a mutation inside the plant. Is it possible that it was attacked by some kind of alien insect? Everyone was talking about it. Lu Xuan thought for a while and asked the young man, "Did my nephew carry the black mud in the pool with him?" "Yes, yes." The young man quickly took out a small bottle from the storage bag, opened the bottle mouth, and revealed most of the black mud inside. Black bubbles occasionally appeared and burst on the surface of the black mud. When the bottle stopper was opened, a strong smell of decay could be smelled. "Master, do you suspect that there might be something wrong with this black mud?" Lu Xuan nodded gently and took out a spirit firefly grass spirit seed from his storage bag. He put the spirit seed into the black mud, and a hazy green light fell on it. The spirit firefly grass is just an on-grade spirit plant with a short growth cycle and a simple cultivation method. Under the influence of Lu Xuan's wood growing technique at the great perfection level and a trace of greenwood source energy, in less than a moment, a slender and tender green spirit firefly grass grew out of the black mud. Upon careful observation, you can see that there is a very faint black gas lingering on the delicate leaves. What is going on?" the young monk exclaimed, and everyone in the audience also concentrated and paid attention to Lu Xuan's actions. "Master, this black mud should be taken from someone else, right?" Lu Xuan continued to stimulate the growth of the spirit firefly grass and asked. "That's true. This rotten water lotus needs to grow in rotten spiritual soil. I took a lot of rotten mud from a secret realm, but I didn't expect it to harm the rotten water lotus." The young monk muttered to himself, with some disbelief in his expression. "If I'm right, there is a trace of foul breath hidden in this black mud, which can be dispelled with corresponding talismans or magic tools." As the firefly grass grew taller and taller, the black hair on the leaves became more and more. The people who saw this scene believed Lu Xuan's judgment by 80%. There are often various kinds of auras in the growth environment of spiritual plants, among which spiritual energy is the most common one. In addition, there are special spiritual energies such as evil energy, yin energy, and evil energy. These auras are not easy to evaluate simply. The same aura can promote the growth of some spiritual plants, but it can also cause great harm to most other spiritual plants. Therefore, in the process of cultivating spiritual plants, it is necessary to identify the surrounding spiritual energy very well and provide the spiritual plants with the best growth environment. Lu Xuan concluded. The young monk stepped down with full gratitude. After that, several outer disciples came on stage, some with spiritual plants, some with questions, and Lu Xuan patiently answered them one by one. "Uncle Lu, I have obtained this hydrangea spiritual seed for 2.5 years, but I haven't bred a spiritual plant in such a long time. I don't know what's wrong. If it can't be cultivated, the vitality in the spiritual seed will probably disappear and become a waste seed." A handsome young man came on stage, holding a dark purple spiritual seed in his hand, with a somewhat anxious expression. Lu Xuan took the spiritual seed and put it into the spiritual soil. He soon found out the problem with the abnormality of the spiritual seed. "My nephew, this hydrangea spiritual seed should come from deep underground, right?" "Indeed, I got this spiritual seed in a secret place thousands of feet deep underground. Does the inability to breed have something to do with this?" the handsome young man thought. Hydrangea spiritual plants usually grow in normal light environments. The spiritual seed you got has been living deep underground for a long time and has undergone changes from generation to generation. It has completely adapted to the underground environment. If you put it back in a normal environment, it will not be able to breed spiritual plants. So, you only need to plant this hydrangea spiritual seed in a cool and dark cave and bury it in the spiritual soil about twice as deep as usual. Lu Xuan proposed a detailed solution. After the handsome young man left with gratitude, he turned his head and looked at the crowd off the field. "This hydrangea spiritual seed should be able to bring some inspiration to you. To cultivate spiritual plants, we also need to teach students in accordance with their aptitude, and we cannot bring in fixed methods and processes. You can establish a closer relationship with the spiritual plants, understand their needs, and adjust the planting method according to their needs, so that they can always maintain a good growth state." He used this hydrangea spiritual seed that could not breed plants as an example, and said to the outer disciples who were listening to the class, "Uncle Lu, I have a 3rd grade green jade branch in my hand. It has suddenly become extremely abnormal in the past 2 days. Can you help me take a look? Suddenly, an indifferent voice was heard. Lu Xuan looked in the direction of the voice and saw a key training perfect cultivator with a gloomy face looking over here. Chapter 245, Helping it destroy. Oh, a 3rd grade green jade branch? Please come up to the stage and let us take a look. Lu Xuan was a little interested. He had seen this 3rd grade green jade branch in a book in the Sutra library. It was extremely rare, and there was no corresponding spiritual seed in the Xianjian sect for exchange. The gloomy looking young man took out a strange shaped branch from the storage bag. The tree trunk was slender and dark green, with coral-like branches on the top, like light green jade, with a crystal texture. Lu Xuan's sharp eyes found that there were many invisible tiny cracks on the jade-like branches, which could be easily overlooked by the naked eye. The cracks were too subtle, and the extension trajectory of the lines was very natural, not like human intervention. Excuse me, nephew, how long has this green jade branch been in this state? Lu Xuan asked curiously. Less than 3 days. I'm not sure exactly. I just discovered it by chance today. The gloomy looking young man replied indifferently. Hearing this, Lu Xuan nodded and kept turning over the 3rd grade jade branch in his hand, his mind churning. What could be the cause? Judging from the development trend of the lines, the possibility of external force is very small, and the focus should still be on the internal cause. Then what is the situation? Evil spirit intrusion? Or unknown alien insects? Or simply want to split? Master, have you found the problem? The gloomy young man was a little impatient and asked anxiously. Not yet, let me take a look. Lu Xuan continued to carefully examine the 3rd grade jade branch in his hand. After another half a minute, he and the other outer disciples who were attracted were still helpless. The several methods proposed were only temporary solutions, and they could not find the root cause of the problem. If master can't find the problem, why not give up here? I will ask other masters to help later. There was a bit of doubt in the young man's tone. Can I plant this jade branch again? He asked the gloomy young man calmly. When in doubt, Lu Xuan plans to use his accurate grasp of the growth status of spiritual plants to try to plant them and see what the reason is. Uncle, there is no need to do this. I have a strong affinity for growing spiritual plants and can roughly sense their emotions and needs. After planting the jade branch, I can make a rough judgment based on those spiritual plant techniques. As long as the jade branch is not damaged, it will be fine. The young man hesitated, and although he thought what Lu Xuan said was a bit unbelievable, he finally nodded in agreement. Please rest assured, nephew, I promise that it will not increase the damage to the spiritual plant. With the permission of the owner of the jade branch, Lu Xuan found an open space, performed the earth drawing technique, and planted the jade branch into the spiritual field. Among the many outer disciples who came to listen to the class, many also gathered around to see how Lu Xuan would solve it. The root of the jade branch was placed in a crack just right. Lu Xuan cast a spiritual rain spell on the spiritual plant, and strands of spiritual rain penetrated into the roots and branches of the green jade branch. With his mind focused, a detailed information about the green jade branch appeared in his mind. Green jade branch, a 3rd grade spiritual plant, is rare and precious. It needs to absorb the essence of jade during its growth. After maturity, it can be used to refine jade roux, i.e., jade pendants, jade slips and other exorcism instruments. Life is fading. Because the spiritual plant is parasitic on the hidden woodworm, the vitality of the spiritual plant is fading. If it continues for a long time, the top jade is likely to slowly disintegrate. Hidden woodworm? What is it? Finding out the problem, Lu Xuan was relieved immediately. However, he had never heard of the hidden woodworm hidden in the spiritual plant. Out of curiosity, his spiritual consciousness gathered everywhere in the spiritual plant. Perhaps he encountered the hidden woodworm itself, and soon, a piece of information about the hidden woodworm flashed through his mind. Hidden woodworm, a 3rd grade exotic insect, has a low attack power among similar insects, but has a strong ability to hide. It can blend in with spiritual plants naturally and skillfully. It can form a symbiotic relationship with certain spiritual plants, growing together, or parasitize other spiritual plants, slowly taking away the vitality of the spiritual plants. It can be led out with wood-based magic tools and talismans. It can blend into the spiritual plants. No wonder there is no trace of it. Symbiosis, parasitism. Lu Xuan sighed, and suddenly, a flash of lightning seemed to strike through his mind. The green jade branch in front of me is obviously not the symbiotic target of the hidden woodworm. So why is there a trace of the hidden woodworm inside the spiritual plant? Perhaps someone took the initiative to put the hidden woodworm inside the spiritual plant? The more Lu Xuan thought about it, the more he felt that this was possible. The passive relationship between the hidden woodworm and the parasitic spiritual plant, plus the fact that the green jade branch showed abnormal conditions in a very short time. Lu Xuan thought quickly in his mind, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt that this was possible. If they deliberately put the hidden woodworm in the jade branch, what was their purpose? Come here to mess things up. He had already imagined the next scene. As a spiritual plant master who could come to the transmission hall to teach, he was helpless when dealing with the third grade jade branch's cracking phenomenon, and then was solved by an unknown Kigan cultivator. Such an obvious contrast would likely affect his reputation in the field of spiritual plants. Who could be the mastermind behind this? The first thing Lu Xuan thought of was the three people in the Blessed Land. He had always lived in seclusion and treated people kindly. It was only because the Phoenix tree had a huge conflict with the three people that it was unlikely to be someone else. Use the rare and precious third grade green jade branch's bait and deliberately put in the extremely difficult to detect hidden woodworm. When you can't solve it yourself and your reputation is ruined, you can use a specific magic tool to lure out the hidden woodworm in the spiritual plant, and the lost vitality of the green jade branch can be quickly restored. It's really not easy to come up with such a flawless method in just half a day. Unfortunately, I didn't expect that I could detect the traces of the hidden woodworm. Lu Xuan's mouth corners rose slightly without a trace. Being able to grasp the real-time state of the spiritual plant, you can see the abnormality of the spiritual plant at a glance, and then find a way to deal with it. Putting the hidden woodworm in the rare green jade branch that cannot establish a symbiotic relationship, there is no plan to save the spiritual plant. In that case, I will give you another boost. Help the demise of the green jade branch. He held the green jade branch spiritual plant in his hand, and a wisp of greenwood source energy flowed out from the tip of his little finger and penetrated into the spiritual plant. The Kingmu source energy contains a large amount of pure plant spiritual energy and is the favorite of most spiritual plants and insects such as hidden woodworms. After absorbing it, the hidden woodworms in the green jade branch can greatly accelerate their growth rate and merge with the spiritual plants more closely and deeply, becoming indistinguishable from each other. The person behind the scenes wanted to strike Lu Xuan and then separate the hidden woodworms from the green jade branch. Lu Xuan didn't stop there and directly welded the two together to cut off the possibility of separation. Nephew, I checked carefully, and there should be a third grade hidden woodworm hidden in the green jade branch. However, it has been a long time, and the chronic disease is hard to recover. I'm afraid it will be difficult to restore the spiritual plant to normal. As soon as the voice fell, the jade branch at the top of the green jade branch made a cracking sound, and the cracks that were almost invisible at first suddenly became longer and larger, clear and obvious. Chapter 246 Female Cultivator. Did you do anything to the jade branch? Hearing the clear cracking sound from the jade branch, the gloomy young man's face turned pale, and he said in shock, this third grade jade branch was given to him by our foundation building cultivator. If he could not return it to its original owner, he would be held responsible. Nephew, you can't just say that. It's obviously the hidden woodworm in the jade branch that is constantly snatching the vitality of the spiritual plant. How can you blame me? Lu Xuan said calmly with a trace of indifference in the corner of his eyes. But the crack was almost invisible just now, and after passing through your hands, it suddenly became so big. It must be you. It must be you. The gloomy young man muttered to himself. He was afraid that the foundation building cultivator behind the scenes would be angry with him for losing a rare third grade spiritual plant, and subconsciously wanted to shift the responsibility to Lu Xuan. How dare you? Lu Xuan was furious, and a strong spiritual pressure spread out. Is this the attitude that an outer sect disciple should have towards a senior who has established his foundation? I have already told you clearly that the reason why the green jade branch is broken is because there is a hidden woodworm parasitizing inside it. The hidden woodworm is constantly seizing the vitality of the spiritual plant. It just broke a little bit just now. Will it remain that way forever? Lu Xuan asked the gloomy young man with a cold face. But obviously, the gloomy young man was about to say something, but when he looked over and saw Lu Xuan, who was intimidating without anger, and dozens of people sitting in the audience, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his throat. He wanted to say that the spiritual plant was intact not long ago, but when the word came to his lips, he immediately realized that something was wrong. If he told the truth, he would be confessing himself, and it would confirm the fact that he had framed the inner sect disciple. If the green jade branch was damaged, he only needed to compensate for the value of the spiritual plant itself, and it would be offset by a little more blood. But framing an inner sect disciple is different. He will definitely be arrested by the discipline hall, which is in charge of the sect rules. At that time, he will be confined for many years at the least, and his cultivation will be abolished, and he will be expelled from the sect at the worst. Thinking of this, the gloomy young man calmed down a lot in an instant. He kept adjusting his breath, and after a few deep breaths, he finally calmed down. I'm sorry, Uncle Lu, the green jade branch is too precious to me. The sudden rupture made it difficult for me to accept it for a while, and my mentality was unbalanced. Please forgive me, Uncle. As for the hidden woodworm problem that Uncle mentioned, I don't know if Uncle can find the worm. The gloomy young man still had a glimmer of luck in his heart. Although Lu Xuan had discovered that the disease of the green jade branch was parasitic on the hidden woodworm, it was one thing to discover it, and another to lead it out. If Lu Xuan couldn't pull out the hidden woodworm, then what he just said would not stand, and the young man would have a reluctant explanation in front of the backstage after returning. Okay. Seeing that he didn't cry until he saw the coffin, Lu Xuan asked for a first-grade crossbow magic weapon from the monks off the scene. The crossbow bow and bowstring are made of wood magic tools, which are very attractive to the hidden woodworm. He controlled the crossbow magic tool with his spiritual power, and placed it in front of the trunk of the jade branch. A strong green light rose from the crossbow. Not long after, as everyone was looking forward to it, a small section of the jade branch trunk broke away, fell on the crossbow, and kept climbing. A small black hole was left on the trunk of the jade branch, and the shape and size were very consistent with the part that fell out. This is a hidden woodworm. It can be integrated with the spiritual plant when it parasitizes it. The hidden woodworm in front of you has established a deep connection with the spiritual plant, so it will cause further damage to the spiritual plant when it is let out. Thank you, Uncle. The last glimmer of hope was shattered. The gloomy young man looked as hen. He took the damaged jade branch from Lu Xuan's hand, picked up the broken parts from the ground, and left the main hole with a dull expression. His steps were deep and shallow, as if he was stepping on a cloud. Lu Xuan had no sympathy for his experience. He had just come to the transmission hall to teach for less than half a day when the person behind the young man deliberately set up such a trap that he had to fall into. If he had not been able to grasp the real-time state of the spiritual plant and forcibly crack it, then his reputation as a spiritual plant master that he had built up in the sect during this period would have been greatly damaged. Although the gloomy young man was instructed by someone, he also reaped the fruits of his own labor. Lu Xuan's move caused the person behind him to lose a rare spiritual plant, and also made the gloomy young man get the retribution he deserved. Well, the hidden woodworm got a good meal for nothing. Okay, let's continue the class. He glanced at the crowd off the field, and the many outer disciples who were still whispering instantly quieted down. The appearance of the gloomy young cultivator was just a small episode, which brought some after-dinner talk to everyone. After him, some other cultivators came on stage and asked Lu Xuan about the various problems encountered in the process of cultivating spiritual plants. Lu Xuan patiently answered them one by one. After the end of the day's class, the crowd off the field left reluctantly. Under Lu Xuan's instruction, they had a new understanding of spiritual plants. Uncle Lu, I'm very interested in cultivating spiritual plants. I wonder if I can help Uncle Master and take care of the spiritual plants he grows? Uncle Master's cultivation is hard, and he has to cultivate a large number of spiritual plants. If I take care of those low-grade spiritual plants, it should save a lot of time. Before leaving, a pretty female cultivator came to Xuan, lowered her head, and almost buried her head in her bulging chest. Take care of the spiritual plants for me. Xuan glanced at them. Yes, I'm willing to share Uncle Master's worries, and I can do it for free. I just hope to learn how to cultivate spiritual plants by Uncle Master's side. In addition, I can take care of Uncle Master's daily life. The pretty female cultivator sensed Xuan's gaze and secretly puffed up her bulging chest, looking rich and generous. I appreciate your kindness, nephew. Xuan replied calmly with clear eyes. However, every spiritual plant in my spiritual field was planted by me personally, and it embodies my countless efforts. Treat them like your own children. It is natural that you would not let others take care of your own children. Xuan flatly refused. You are kidding. After the spiritual plants mature, the white light balls harvested are the foundation of his existence in the cultivation world. If he leaves them to this pretty female cultivator to take care of, although it will be a lot easier, it also means that he will not get extra light ball rewards. After all, the degree of cultivation during the growth of spiritual plants is also one of the important factors affecting the light ball rewards. Well, Uncle Master, if you need it, you can always find me. Seeing Xuan's incomprehensible look, the pretty female cultivator looked helpless, left a communication talisman, and turned away. You actually want to get involved in the spiritual plants I planted, so that I can't get the light ball reward. Female cultivator, it will only affect the speed of my farming. Xuan looked at the figure of the female cultivator going away, and snorted in his heart. Chapter 247 Cooperation. The foundation building pill party is already in the formation. Junior brother Lu, please stay. Just as Xuan summoned a spiritual crane and was about to leave the transmission hall, a gentle voice came from behind him. He turned his head and saw the yellow-shirted woman he had seen in the side hall before, smiling at him. Senior Sister Xuan. The two had chatted for a while before, and Xuan learned that the yellow-shirted woman's name was Xuan, who was in the middle stage of foundation building and was proficient in alchemy. Xuan walked up to him with a smile on her elegant and quiet face. I have heard about the content of spiritual plants that junior brother Lu taught today. Junior brother's attainments in the field of spiritual plants are really admirable. Many theories about cultivating spiritual plants are enlightening and full of emotion. It was even more exciting to solve various spiritual plant problems for outer disciples on the spot in the afternoon. I wish I could be there in person to see junior brother Lu's style. Senior Sister Xuan, you are too kind. I wonder what important matter is there for you to talk to me about. The yellow-shirted woman's praise made the always shameless Xuan a little embarrassed, and he asked quickly. The reason I found junior brother Lu is to discuss the possibility of cooperation with you. Xuan's expression straightened, and she said softly, cooperation? Xuan's spirits lifted. Yes, junior brother Lu already knows that I have a good talent in alchemy and have a decent position in the sect's alchemy hall. The alchemy hall supplies a large number of disciples in the sect with various elixirs, so the spiritual plants needed have reached an extremely terrifying level. There are usually 3 ways to get materials. One is that when the sect disciples go out to explore the secret realm, they get them from the secret realm and return to the sect in exchange for spiritual stones or sword seals. Such materials generally have great uncertainty. The second is to entrust the family established by the sect disciples after leaving the sect to help plant spiritual medicines, which are generally those varieties with large quantities and not high grades. Xuan heard this and nodded gently. The farthest he had ever been away from the sect was when he was invited by Yao King to go to a small island to solve the large-scale insect pest problem of the water spirit beach. The last one is that the alchemists in the Dan Palace plant them themselves. The Dan Palace has many medicine gardens in the sect, each with different spiritual energy and spiritual soil, which can be used to plant various spiritual plants in a targeted manner. For those spiritual plants of lower grades, tasks can be issued and entrusted to outer disciples. high-grade spiritual plants, due to the increasing difficulty of cultivation, are usually handed over to the alchemists in the Dan Palace or spiritual plant masters with a good reputation in the sect to help cultivate them. This time I found Junior Brother Lou, and I want to establish such a cooperation model with Junior Brother. What are the specific contents of the cooperation? Lu Xuan's heart was moved. The Dan Palace will provide spiritual seeds and pay you a certain number of sword seals as a guaranteed reward. When the spiritual plants mature, an assessment will be made based on the number and quality of the spiritual plants. If the survival rate of the spiritual plants is high and the quality is excellent, you will be given an additional reward. If the survival rate is too low and the quality is average, there will be no punishment, but the cooperation between the two will be interrupted. The yellow-shirted woman explained patiently. Is there such a good thing? Lu Xuan muttered secretly in his heart. The spiritual seeds, provided for cultivation by foundation building cultivators, are of at least 3 grades, and the number will not be just 1 or 2. In addition, there is a sword seal as a guaranteed reward, and if the quality of the spiritual plants is good, there will be other rewards. Of course, the light ball reward is the most important. Where else can you find such a good thing? Thanks to Senior Sister's kindness, I'm willing to establish a cooperative relationship with the Alchemy Palace and help the Alchemy Palace and Senior Sister solve their problems. Lu Xuan said earnestly. The main thing is to make a contribution to the sect. As for whether there is a light bowl or not, it is not important. He added in his heart. Okay, welcome Junior Brother Lu to join. With Junior Brother's attainments in spiritual plants, he will definitely not let us down. Xuan said softly. I wonder if Senior Sister can tell me what kind of spiritual plant it will be. After having a rough intention of cooperation, Lu Xuan asked curiously. The specific type of spiritual plant depends on the needs of the alchemy master in the alchemy hall. In addition, the Sinning Hall also needs to go through the process. It will be given to you, Junior Brother Lu, within 10 days at most. If it goes as expected, it should be one of the main materials for refining the Foundation Establishment Pill. Foundation Establishment Pill? Hearing the words of the yellow-shirted woman, Lu Xuan showed a trace of surprise on his face. As far as I know, the formula of the Foundation Establishment Pill is the core secret of the sect. If the corresponding spiritual plant is given to others to plant, will it lead to the risk of leaking the formula? He said with some concern. Junior Brother, you worry too much. There are many kinds of spiritual plants for refining the Foundation Establishment Pill, including spiritual plants of the 3rd grade and above. It is not easy to collect them all. Besides, it doesn't matter, even if you know the specific types of spiritual plants. Alchemy pays more attention to the processing methods of various materials, the matching ratio, the refining techniques, and even the grade of the pill fire, etc. Xuan said confidently. Really? Then I'm relieved. Lu Xuan responded, but he didn't agree with what Xuan said. Other cultivators, even if they collected all the spiritual plants needed to refine the foundation building pill, could not successfully crack the pill formula. But he was different. He only needed to cultivate one of the important spiritual plants, and he would have a high probability of getting the foundation building pill formula from the light ball. After cultivating spiritual plants for so many years, and obtaining hundreds or thousands of light balls, Lu Xuan had already figured out a certain pattern. Although the rewards from the light ball seemed random, they were actually traceable, and had a deep connection with the types, effects, and properties of the spiritual plants. For example, Lingyi grass can be used to refine the recovery and nourishing pill. The rewards include nourishing pills and pill formulas, and it may also replace the nourishing pills and directly improve the cultivation. Giant KO, a natural sword weapon, has the rewards of Zunli sword pills, sword embryos, and flying swords. There are also the recently matured fiery fruits, which have a strong fire attribute spiritual power. The rewards from the light ball include the 3rd grade magic weapon explosive flame pearl, the 3rd grade pill Feniuan pill, red lotus flame, and flame art, all of which are related to the fire spirit. Therefore, if we really cultivate the spiritual plants, that are the main materials for the foundation building pill, then when they mature, we will most likely be able to obtain the foundation building pill, or even the formula for the foundation building pill, from the light ball. Thinking of this, Lu Xuan smiled even more. then please pay more attention to it, Senior Sister Xuan. If you are sure, you can come to my cave to find me. I usually stay in the cave, planting spiritual plants, and raising spiritual beasts. Lu Xuan left a communication talisman for the woman in yellow. Okay, come and bother me then. The woman in yellow happily took the talisman and left. Lu Xuan's mouth curled up. I have always followed the rules in the sect. I didn't intend to steal the confidential formula, but I didn't expect it to come to me and directly enter my mind. I can't help wanting it. The core secrets of the major sects, the formula for the foundation building pill, are already in the formation. Chapter 248, Demon Exorcism is left to you. He returned to the mountain and opened the flowing light talisman formation. As soon as he entered, a grey vine slipped out from his sleeve. The spiritual energy of plants and trees from all over the mountain made it feel intoxicated, and it twisted and turned as it crawled along the rocks. Because Lu Xuan injected a lot of greenwood source energy into it when it was conceived, the demon ghost vine had a strong dependence on him. Most of the time, it hid in his robes. Only when it returned to the mountain did it let itself go a little and indulge in the colorful world with many spiritual plants. The grey vine looked left and right, hesitated for a moment, turned in the direction of the 4th grade earth fire heart lotus, the black insect vine, and the soul enriching pine, and finally chose the location of the 3rd grade fairy peach. If for nothing else, it just liked the energy of staying near the fairy peach. The wind falcon hung with a big belly like a balloon, and its light blue wings kept flapping, turning into a stream of blue light, using Lu Xuan's head as a buffer, bouncing up and falling back to the ground. There was a big red chain hanging on the ankle. The chain was the Liho Gyro. After being raised for so long, the Liho Gyro was more than half a meter long, with fine fiery red scales on its slender body. In the woods, the pair of emerald eyes of the stepping cloud lynx quietly watched Lu Xuan teasing Feng Hun and the young Gyro. Then he turned his head away without paying any attention, with only his pointed ears facing the direction of Lu Xuan. After he came over and pulled the 2 tufts of grey hair on the tip of his ear, he growled with full intention and left unhurriedly. Lu Xuan returned to the house and carefully sorted out the gains from this trip to the transmission hall. During the course, he exchanged experiences with many outer disciples about spiritual plants, and saw many strange and bizarre spiritual plant varieties, which broadened his horizons a lot. As for imparting his own planting experience and refined cultivation methods to them, Lu Xuan was not worried about the situation, where the apprentice would be taught, and the master would starve to death. After all, if they want to cultivate better quality spiritual plants, they need to constantly explore and experiment, and summarize the best way to cultivate spiritual plants, while they need to be much simpler and more crude, and can directly understand the immediate status of spiritual plants. More importantly, spiritual plants have different meanings for the two. For Lu Xuan, cultivating spiritual plants can gain cultivation and various rare treasures, and can completely put aside cultivation and exploration opportunities. As for other cultivators, even if they change after Lu Xuan's teaching, the degree of change is extremely limited, and cultivation is the first priority. The next day, Lu Xuan was invited by Liu Su to have a small gathering with several fellow brothers and sisters. Several people are proficient in spiritual plants and spiritual beasts, so they get together from time to time to exchange experiences with each other. After knowing that Lu Xuan had entered the Langai blessed land not long ago, everyone's attitude towards him has changed significantly, and they are much more enthusiastic than before. The kwashu flows, and the wine is mixed. Sitting and discussing, it is very pleasant. When the chat was in full swing, suddenly, a slight and sharp sword whistle came to everyone's ears. Then, an invisible sword of air appeared silently at the edge of everyone's ear. The sword of air burst like a bubble, and a voice sounded in the air. All inner disciples, listen to the order. Recently, Tong Yin, the giant and demon leader of Jian sect, was besieged by giant and real people of 3 sects, and died on the spot. The secret treasure he refined, the 5-heart demon, escaped by chance, and no less than 2 heart demons fled into Xingyuan city and the surrounding market areas 2,000 miles away. In order to prevent the heart demons from killing innocent people and causing chaos in the cultivation world, and to restore the peace and order of Xingyuan city, we are now organizing inner disciples to eliminate the demons. You can participate voluntarily. For each heart demon that is successfully eliminated, you will receive a 4th grade flying sword as a reward. Depart tomorrow. The deep voice entered everyone's mind. 5 heart demons. Escape to the edge of the sect and be killed. A middle-aged cultivator with a mature and steady face said indignantly. Yes, it is the duty of our righteous cultivators to exorcise demons and defend the way. Moreover, this Tonxin demon dared to invade our Xianjian sect's territory, which is tantamount to seeking death. Someone echoed. There is actually a 4th grade flying sword as a reward for exorcising demons. I was a little worried at first, but after the reward came out, the little worry disappeared instantly. Haha, it depends on who has the ability to get the 4th grade flying sword. Everyone's interest was aroused by the 4th grade flying sword reward, as if it was already in their pocket. A Chindan Zenran died. It's really terrifying. Lu Xuan's focus was different from others. He originally thought that, after being promoted to the foundation building stage, his survival ability in the cultivation world would be greatly improved. The Chindan stage could even call the wind and rain in the cultivation world, and his status was extremely respected. But he didn't expect to hear the news of the death of the Chindan Zenran today. It seems that I still have to hide in the sect. His current cultivation level in the early stage of foundation building is probably just a larger ant in the eyes of those Chindan Zenran, who can be manipulated at will. Senior Sister Liu, I have been staying in the sect and rarely go out. I don't know much about the common sense of the cultivation world. I would like to ask you, what is the origin of Tongyin? He whispered to Liu Su, who had fair skin beside him. Tongyin is a Chindan elder of Jian sect. He has a perverse and violent personality, acts viciously, and has offended several major sects. I guess he has caused public outrage, which is why several Chindan masters have joined forces to kill him. What about the 5 sons of the heart demon who escaped? The killer of the Chindan master. Can we deal with it with our main cultivation in the early and middle stages of foundation building? Lu Xuan nodded gently and continued to ask. I have heard of the 5 sons of unity demon. It is said that the method of refining it is extremely vicious. You need to find 5 infants with 5 element and single spiritual roots. During the gestation period, the mother body will be refined into a vessel of evil. Then, it will be fed with the blood and souls of thousands of infants. Finally, 5 infant ghosts with strong resentment will be obtained. Only after a long period of sacrifice and refining can the 5 sons of unity demon be refined. It is indeed against the harmony of heaven. No wonder he was besieged and died tragically at the Chindan stage. Lu Xuan sighed when he heard this. From Linyang market to entering Xianjian sect, he had fought with others only a few times. For a moment, it was hard to imagine such a vicious scene. When the Tonxin demon merged into one, its strength was very strong. After they separated, its strength is estimated to be equivalent to the early or middle stage of foundation building. If it flows into the city of scattered cultivators or the market, it will probably cause countless killings in order to replenish its essence, blood, and soul. Xingqian City is on the edge of the sect. No wonder the sect will spend a lot of money and organize inner disciples to go and eliminate the demon. Fellow brothers and sisters, let's go together to solve the Tonxin demon. Let's go together. Since you can eliminate demons and defend the way, and you have a chance to get a 4th grade flying sword, you naturally have to go. What do you think, junior brother Lu? Me. Lu Xuan was stunned and said with a smile. Junior brother, I have only been promoted to foundation building for a short time, and my strength is weak. It is more appropriate for you to leave the elimination of demons and the defense of the way to you senior brothers and sisters. I'll leave the elimination of demons to you, and I'd better concentrate on farming. Chapter 249. It's impossible to collect all the. Junior brother Lu is too modest. Junior brother has been promoted to an inner sect disciple at such a young age, so he must have a lot of skills. A quiet female cultivator next to him smiled and said, that's right. Besides, there should be many inner sect disciples going together to sweep Xingqian City and its surrounding markets to suppress the Tonxin demon. If there is any accident, as long as the sect's communication talisman is activated, we can quickly help each other. After the Tonxin demon was separated, it was at most in the early or middle stage of foundation building. In addition, the old demon of Giant died, and he had to face other cultivators during the escape, so he was likely to be seriously injured. I think the most difficult part of this clearing mission is how to find the Toxin demon that escaped into Xuan City as soon as possible to avoid involving mortals and ordinary casual cultivators. A slightly fat young man said slowly, and everyone nodded in agreement. I'm really sorry, a large number of spiritual plants will mature in my spiritual field in the next few days. If we miss the best time to mature because of the clearing of the demon and cannot pick them in time, I'm afraid it will damage the spiritual power and medicinal properties of the spiritual plants. Xuan hesitated for a moment, but finally refused. The fact is just as he said. There are currently second grade flaming fruits, third grade jade scale fruits and sword raising goods in the mountain spiritual field that are in the mature stage. If you miss them, it will not only affect the quality of the spiritual plants, but also affect the richness of the rewards brought by the white light ball. Moreover, the Toxin demon was left by a giant Zenran. Who can guarantee that there will not be any hidden cards or killers hidden in it? After hearing what Xuan said, everyone stopped. They are all spiritual plant masters, so they naturally know the importance of the timing of picking spiritual plants. After chatting for a while, they left one after another and prepared to set out to search and hunt Toxin demon. Xuan returned to the mountain and began to inspect the spiritual field to check the growth status of each spiritual plant. 10 flaming fruits entered the mature and explosive period. In the fiery red leaves, the spiritual fruits like clusters of flames were about to emerge. From a distance, it looked like the spiritual plants were burning wantonly. 1 fiery fruit, 2 fiery fruits. I can't harvest them all. I can't harvest them all. Xuan grinned, enjoying the joy of a good harvest with 1 fiery fruit after another. In the end, he picked a total of 15 fully mature fiery fruits, 11 of which were of good quality and 4 of superior quality. 15 white light balls were hidden in various parts of the spirit tree, complementing the fiery red leaves. Xuan picked them up one by one, and a series of information flashed through his mind, and the rewards for the maturity of the spirit plants appeared one by one. Harvest a second grade fiery fruit, and obtain the third grade treasure explosive flame pearl point right square bracket asterisk 3. Harvest a second grade fiery fruit, and obtain the third grade elixir finio and pill point right square bracket asterisk 5. In the end, from the 15 white light balls, 3 third grade explosive flame pearls, 5 third grade finio and pills, 3 upper parts of the flame art, plus 2 experience packs of the lower part of the flame art, and a third grade red lotus flame were opened. Since the red lotus flame was not for his own use, but for cultivating the royal poinciana, Xuan did not refine it, but put it into a special vessel, and took it out after the previous red lotus flame was completely absorbed. Among them, a new reward was opened from a high quality light ball. Harvest a second grade flaming fruit, and obtain the third grade burning Yuan recipe. Or thought flashed through his mind, and then a huge amount of information poured into his sea of consciousness. The variety of spiritual plants required for refining pills, the processing of materials, the proportion and amount when adding them to the pill furnace, the control of the pill fire, the control of the timing of pill formation. All kinds of knowledge about refining the burning Yuan poured into Xuan's sea of consciousness, making him dizzy for a while. I didn't expect that I hadn't got the third grade foundation building pill recipe yet, but I got the third grade burning Yuan recipe first. Xuan digested everything about the recipe carefully and sighed secretly. After cultivating so many spiritual plants, the pill recipe experience package did not appear very often. Only the previous Lingian grass would occasionally open the first grade Yuan recipe experience package. However, Xuan is now at the foundation building stage, so it is not reasonable to refine the first grade elixir. In addition, he has to squeeze time to practice his skills and magic on weekdays, so the elixir furnace he bought has been gathering dust all the time. Xuan took out a flaming fruit and called the demon ghost vine over. A grey vine swam over quickly like a poisonous snake, dragging many small vines all over its body, like thin arms. Come, let's improve the food today. Xuan threw a complete flaming fruit to the demon ghost vine, and the grey vine immediately entangled the flaming spiritual fruit, and then deeply penetrated into it. The place where the flaming fruit was absorbed by the demon ghost vine quickly became dim, and strands of fiery red spiritual light flowed through the thin vines and merged into the depths of the vines. Poor little guy, he feeds on spiritual plants and fruits, but he has followed me to the sect for so long, facing the treasure mountain with various spiritual plants, and it was not until today that he finally enjoyed a complete spiritual fruit. Xuan sighed and continued to inspect other spiritual fields on the mountain. The ice radish fruit is ripe too. Xuan stood in front of a spiritual plant with a trunk like an ice crystal, a hint of joy on his face. His mind was focused on one of the azure spiritual fruits, and he could see that the almost transparent progress bar below was already full. A thin layer of frost appeared on his hand, and he carefully picked the ripe ice radish fruit. The shape of the ice radish fruit is similar to that of a pineapple, but it is nearly half the size. The surface is azure and crystal blue, and it is filled with cold air, and has a refreshing fragrance. A thought flashed through his mind. Ice radish fruit, a second-grade spiritual fruit, contains a faint icy spiritual aura. After swallowing it, you can feel a natural icy taste, which is extremely delicious. At the same time, it can quickly replenish the spiritual power in the body, and has an excellent healing effect on internal injuries caused by fire magic and fire poison. Collect the fiery fruit, and the ice wisteria fruit, and gather the fruits of ice and fire. Call the black sky loon bird and the white jade sky supporting ape over someday, and let these two guardian spirit beasts feel the small shock of the ice and fire world. Will they be fascinated and infatuated? Xuan laughed and looked up at the white light ball that was almost condensed in the frost. He stepped on the air with his feet, came to the front of the light ball, and reached out to touch it gently. The light ball instantly broke into countless ice flowers, all floating into Xuan's body. A thought flashed through his mind. Harvest a second-grade ice wisteria fruit, obtain a third-grade treasure, 100-year ice soul. Then, a fist-sized ice crystal object appeared in his hand, with an uneven surface, crystal clear, and refracting different lights. In the center was a ball of pure white spiritual liquid, as if solidified inside the ice crystal, motionless. Even through the thick ice crystal, one could feel the extremely cold and pure breath contained in the pure white spiritual liquid. Chapter 250 Jade Muscle Pill Great Sun Sword Talisman. With his mind focused, detailed information about the ice crystal appeared in Xuan's mind. 100-year-old ice soul, a third-grade treasure, a drop of ice essence condensed under a 1,000-foot glacier. After years of quenching, it formed a 100-year-old ice soul. The main material for refining high-grade ice-based pills. A little drop can greatly increase the success rate of pills, and can also refine the ice soul, and integrate it into the body, to assist in practicing certain ice-based exercises. It can increase the success rate of pills, and it is a top-grade material for refining pills. It must be of great value in the eyes of the alchemists in the sect. Xuan has dabbled in alchemy, but he has always held a unique idea, either not to refine, or to refine amazingly. How big the gap between the two is, it depends on how many pill formula experience packs are needed to fill it. He put this ball of 100-year-old ice soul into the storage bag, and continued to check the spiritual fruits on the remaining ice radish fruit plants. Hey, there is another one, that is fully mature. His spiritual sense sensed the maturity progress of each spiritual fruit, and found another one on the last ice radish fruit plant. A thin layer of frost wrapped around his skin, and he carefully picked the crystal blue ice radish fruit. Good quality, just average. He sighed, and focused his attention on a slightly flickering white light ball on the top of the spiritual plant. With a light touch, the light ball extended into countless tiny frost flowers, all rushing into his body. Harvested a second-grade ice radish fruit, and obtained a third-grade jade muscle pill. A pill as white as jade, emitting wisps of cold air, appeared in his palm. With his mind focused, jade muscle pill, a third-grade pill, has a very strong healing effect, and can regenerate broken arms at the foundation building stage and below. Third-grade healing pill, has a good effect on foundation building cultivators. You can keep it just in case. Although Xuan rarely went out, and had never been injured, after realizing the magic of the spiritual field, he still had to have a top-grade healing pill like the jade muscle pill, to be prepared for any eventuality. There were only 4 bungalow fruit plants, each with 7 or 8 azure blue fruits hanging on it. Although they all looked plump, Lu Xuan still held back in order to maximize the light ball reward and waited until they were fully ripe before picking them. He returned to the house, sorted out the harvest in the spiritual field, and began to practice the technique. The next day, he felt that the inner sect was much quieter. Under the temptation of the 4th grade flying sword, it was estimated that there were no less than 30 inner disciples in the sect who went together to encircle and suppress the escaped Tongsin demon. Excluding those inner disciples who were in seclusion or busy refining some high-grade elixir and magic weapon, there were not many fellow disciples like Lu Xuan who resisted the temptation. Lu Xuan didn't care about it. More than 30 people went to compete for 2 or 3 4th grade flying swords. Not only was the probability small, but there was also a certain risk. In comparison, harvesting white light balls was much more fragrant. The successive maturity of the flaming fruit and the ice radish fruit made Lu Xuan have been in a state of bumper harvest for a while. Almost every trip to the spiritual field, 1 or 2 spiritual fruits can be picked, and 1 or 2 light balls can be rewarded. The number of explosive flame beads, 100-year ice souls, etc. collected in the storage bag is increasing, and the burning yuan and jade muscle pill appear alternately. After absorbing several experience packs of flame art, the mastery of this art has reached an extremely exquisite realm. The reception and release are controlled freely by the heart, and various flame forms can be changed at will. The endless harvest makes Lu Xuan feel happy here and not miss his hometown. Under the jade scale fruit spiritual plant, the 3 spiritual fruits exude a faint cool breath, with layers of jade thin skin on the surface, and the crystal clear flesh inside is looming. You can smell an attractive fragrance from afar. Lu Xuan put away the 3 mature jade scale fruits, and picked up the 3 white light balls on the spiritual plant one by one. Harvest a 3rd grade jade scale fruit, and obtain the 4th grade spiritual or red gangayu. Asterisk 2 pieces of red ore appeared in Lu Xuan's hands. The surface was bumpy and uneven, and dark red chalcedony could be vaguely seen flowing slowly inside. Chigangayu contains a lot of jade essence, which is a top grade material for refining flying swords and magic tools. Harvested a 3rd grade jade scale fruit, and obtained the 4th grade treasure Yunshan jade scroll. An exquisite and small talisman appeared in his hand, and a cool feeling came from the crystal talisman, as if it could dispel all the evil thoughts in his heart. Yunshan Jade Scroll is made of Yunshan Jade Essence, which naturally restrains evil and strange things. It can be used directly as a protective magic tool, or it can be painted with exorcism runes on it to enhance the killing of evil spirits. At this point, the 8 spiritual fruits on the Jade Scale fruit have fully matured. Lu Xuan has gained a lot. In addition to 8 3rd grade spiritual fruits, he also got a 3rd grade magic tool Fengayu Jade Seal, 5 4th grade spiritual or Chigangayu, and 2 4th grade Yunshan Jade Scrolls. Chigang Jade and Yunshan Jade Scroll are considered spiritual materials, and their value is not much different from the 3rd grade magic weapon Fengayu Jade Seal. Lu Xuan was generally satisfied with the rewards from the Jade Scale fruit. He also included it in the subsequent candidate spiritual plants. After going through the most hungry state for spiritual plants, Lu Xuan was no longer hungry and indiscriminate like before, but consciously chose the most suitable spiritual plants for himself, based on the value of the spiritual plants themselves, and the types of treasures rewarded by the light group. Of course, spiritual plants of the 4th grade and above are not within the scope of consideration. Once they are obtained, they will be planted and cultivated first. While thinking, Lu Xuan came to the bottom of the sword raising gourd. On the shelf, built by many second-hand flying swords, vines were entangled in it, and 3 green and mottled gourds were hung on the top. When you get close, you can hear the clanging sound of swords coming from the gourds. The sword raising gourd at the bottom matured earlier than the other 2 because it absorbed more sword intent. Lu Xuan carefully picked it down. A thought flashed through his mind. Harvest a 3rd grade sword raising gourd, and obtain the 4th grade talisman Great Sun Sword Talisman. A red talisman appeared in his palm. In the center of the talisman, there seemed to be a blazing sun hanging high in the sky, and the red sword key was like the light emitted by the blazing sun, dense and dense. The talisman was full of panic and power. At first glance, the eyes were almost burned by the blazing sun inside. Lu Xuan's mind was focused on the red talisman, and suddenly, detailed information about the talisman emerged from his mind. The Great Sun Sword Talisman, a 4th grade talisman, stores endless Great Sun Sword Ki. When it is activated, it is like the blazing sun in the sky, which can capture people's minds and hearts. Looking directly at it can cause the cultivator to go blind. The sword does panic, like the blazing sun. When it is fully activated, it can seriously injure, or even kill the cultivators in the middle and late stages of foundation building. A 4th grade sword talisman. It sounds like it's even stronger than the Xiaohei sword talisman I got before. After learning about this Great Sun Sword Talisman, Xuan couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Those fellow disciples who went out to eliminate the Tongxin demon were awarded with 4th grade flying swords, and I got the sword raising good and a 4th grade sword talisman. Rounding it off, I can be considered to have killed a Tongxin demon. He couldn't help but think in his heart. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.